WBF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Ambers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest buskeg hits. Chuck Muncie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Alan. Of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Oh, might have to get Sean in Long Island to revise our show open. Mr. Mayo, maybe not as relevant.
Oh, no.
Thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. We welcome you into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you listening, however you may be doing so. The free-to-download Odyssey app locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950. We've got our YouTube channel up and rolling. The stream is going on right now at the YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
I don't think it's a surprise that Gerard Mayo, now I know how to say it, Gerard Mayo got fired. This is the timing of it. Oh, my gosh. They haven't even gotten to the halftime of the 4 o'clock games, and there was the news. Like, did they hand out the game balls, and then did Robert Kraft say, come here, I want to talk to you?
I have to imagine that something either happened yesterday that was so off-putting or happened earlier in the year where they had this in mind for a while, and they knew exactly what they were going to do and when they were going to do it. Like, in my mind, when I saw it, I'm like, okay, they're firing him because he didn't lose. Because you gave up the first pick. By beating the Bills, you gave up the first overall pick. You gave up what a lot of people are going to want come April's draft, a lot of leverage that comes with that, a lot of clout that comes with that, and you gave it up by getting the win. You're a former player, you know, and a lot of the macho coaches, meathead coaches are going to be like, we're going to win no matter what. You play to win games. Everybody always says it, and it's not wrong. But in that situation, strategically, you basically just gave up the number 1 overall pick to Tennessee.
Well, I think that that's part of it. I also think this too, Danger, that pop quiz, who was the last team to beat Tom Brady as a Patriot?
Was it the Jets?
No. It's a playoff game.
Oh, as a Patriot, last team, it was the Titans.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
I remember that was Vrabel and Tannehill.
So just imagine that night, dreary night in Foxborough, where Robert Kraft back in 2020 there was just looking at Tom Brady lose that game, and there was his former player on the opposite side doing the trick to Belichick there about running the clock and everything. It's fantastic. Mike Vrabel sitting at Tom Brady's jersey retirement party over the summer there, right next to Robert Kraft. I can only imagine what those two men might have been talking about, because at that point, yeah, I had this consulting deal, but was it really tampering just to kind of put it out there? And hey, if you want to speed this up, I'm interviewing with the Jets today. That was done so quick to say, Mike, don't take that job. Don't go to Chicago. Come back to New England.
By the way, I mean, have you gotten a call yet from the Jets to interview for their head coaching job? Because I think they left me a voicemail earlier. Everybody has been requested to interview for the Jets job.
I'm here to report that Hilton High School head coach Rich Lapani has been now requested to interview with the Jets.
Want to work it into the contract, yes. I have to be able to wear shorts on the sideline. That's all. I'm only going to request that I wear shorts on the sideline. Can we get some Nike shorts that I can wear every week on the sideline for the Jets? Josh McCown. I mean, the list is long. It's Josh McCown. It's Brian Flores. It's Matt Nagy, it's Joe Brady, it's Vance Joseph, it's Aaron Glenn, Arthur Smith, Bobby Slowick, Brian Greasy. I mean, these are all people that the Jets have requested to interview. So why would you think that Vrabel is the guy that that they're going to settle on when you have this laundry list of guys that you're going to supposedly interview, you've requested to interview. But I see the sense of urgency working with the Patriots. If that's the guy you want, Rooney Rule be damned, that's the guy you want to lock down before anybody else does. Bring him home and make him your next head coach.
So not only do you have to not worry about, unless barring a trade up in the draft for some reason, Travis Hunter falling to number 4, you don't have to worry about Brian Dable being the offensive coordinator for Drake May. I'm a little surprised that the Giants just kind of stood pat with Joe Shane and Brian Dable.
I am surprised, but I feel like it's the right move, actually. Like, you can look at what Dable and Shane have done, or look at this season and be like, oh, God. I think that they're starting 2025 on the hot seat, both of them. But you give them a little bit of grace. I think in the case of Dable, because he was a recent coach of the year, for what that's worth. And I think you look at the guys that they drafted this year, and you say, all right, Joe Shane maybe just needs a little bit more time to work his magic, to build a team, to build a culture. And Dable's got to be a bigger part of that culture as well. I'm worried about some of the people. You see it throughout the NFL at the end of the season when frustrations are high and emotions are high. And certainly you saw it earlier this season with Malik Neighbors, specifically with the Giants. But what Neighbors did earlier this year with the Giants pales into what we heard from Tyreek Hill at the end of the game yesterday.
I'm done. I'm out.
I'm out. I'm done. I can't not be in the playoffs. I'm too much of a competitor. And I'm worried about McDaniel. I know he's going to be back. Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer are both going to be back in Miami. But when McDaniel was pressed about that, his answers, he's not the same Mike McDaniel. Remember how he used to be kind of quirky and fun and funny on these press? He's stuttering and stammering his way through this thing like somebody got to McDaniel, or he's just lost something off the fastball or something.
Losing. It's called losing, Danger. Beat you down. Yeah.
He is not the same coach that Miami brought in. He's a shell of what he was, which is great news for the Buffalo Bills. And that headache now, if you're the Dolphins, that's a captain, by the way. That's Tyreek Hill, captain. That's what leadership looks like in the Miami locker room. I'm out. It's been fun, but I'm out. Wow. Thanks, Cap. By the way, you're making so much money, but you're out? Okay. Good luck.
That is what character shows when you have a little bit of adversity. That's your real character.
Well, I just wonder if they do part ways, is there a team that will look at a guy who quit on his team, didn't go into the game late? He said after the game, I'm out. You going to take a chance on that guy? Do you want that guy? If you're trying to build something, is that the guy you want?
Andy Reid turned heads like, oh, my gosh, Kansas City's taking a step back. Why would you do such a thing? Blah, 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 blah. He knew the character of that guy. Move him out of the room. Like everybody's like, well, he'll end up back in Kansas City. Will he? Chiefs seem to be doing just fine without Tyreek Hill.
Right. Black Monday. Some of the news that we've gotten today. Some surprises, some not so surprised. Surprised that Lou Anarumo was let go with the Bengals. They don't make the postseason, but and their defense was terrible this year. But that guy, for what it's worth, I think has been a good defensive coordinator. Maybe the message got stale. Maybe he's got a little of that Mike Zimmer to him, like old school, tough guy football that can't really communicate with the next generation of players. But he's out with the Bengals.
Wow, I view him like Vic Fangio as a commodity. Like, okay, some team that is going to be hiring, he will have his choice of any of these. I don't want Lou Anarumo becoming the new defensive coordinator to the Jets, because the Jets have some pieces. Yeah, you can run all over the place on him. I don't want him in the division. So kind of leave it at that, or whatever Miami may or may not be doing.
Doug Peterson out in Jacksonville. Not really surprised by that.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't clean house fully. They're going to allow Fart Man to pick another head coach down there?
Fart Man? Who's Fart Man? Who is this Fart Man you
Not Howard
speak
Stern,
of?
no.
Oh, no, it's not Howard Stern. It's their GM, Trent Baalke? Is that the fart man of which you speak, Gino?
We're not there yet. We still got a couple of days going through. Coach and I haven't sat down and gone through the final board yet. We'll do that on Monday.
He paused to let that out. Yeah. Didn't talk over the top of it. If you're Shad Khan, are you more impressed that he just doesn't care?
You can't fire a guy with that kind of swagger. You can't fire a guy that lets one rip in front of a room full of media and doesn't even lose his train of thought and actually apologizes before continuing his sentence? That's impressive. Yeah, I trust that guy to find a head coach. Go get it. Try not to crap on anybody's couch when you're sitting down. My God. So Jacksonville moving on from a former Super Bowl winning head coach.
And as far as Dallas doing what Dallas does. Mike McCarthy isn't under contract, so technically they can't fire him. We're talking semantics here, but supposedly there's going to be some sort of sit down with Jerry and McCarthy. And I look at the Cowboys and I look at the Buffalo Bills. I know this is going to be a big topic when you get to it later on, but Jerry Jones not doing his players any favor. He is not fit to run that team. Danger, and whoever they hire, good luck.
When you look at the Bills and what they did yesterday, where you have a head coach who let Von Miller get out there and get his one sack and get his $1.5 million incentive, or James Cook for him to get to 1,000 yards rushing. Yeah, I was wondering, I'm like, why is James Cook there? Oh, get him to 1,000 yards. That means something to him. Mm-hmm. He wants that. That means something. When you watch the end of the Bucs and the Saints and you see how the Bucs sideline reacted, not to beating the Saints and clinching a playoff berth, but to see Mike Evans make that catch, get over 1,000 yards, hit that incentive, just remarkable. And that's the kind of thing when you talk about culture, I feel like those are the moments that galvanize a locker room, that make everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to play for each other. They all have each other's back. You don't see that with every team, but you saw instances of it, and certainly you saw it yesterday with the Bills, even in a losing effort.
Yeah, like yesterday, it's weird. They lost, but we're not playing the Godfather music. We're not playing Victory Monday.
Oh, we could play the Godfather music if we were in New England today.
We're in New England. We could do
Robert
that.
Kraft is the Godfather.
You will never see Sean McDermott or any other coach punt at the plus 35. Like, what is he do? Oh, that's right. The incentive for Sam Martin inside the 20. This is a little chippy. Let me have my punter make his dollars.
Yeah, really makes it resonates. That's the kind of thing that I think players do pay attention to. And when you're talking about, luring free agents or trying to get players at a value, those are the kind of things that I think matter. And seeing the Bills participate in that the way they did, even though they lost the game. I mean, it was a meaningless game. I mean, what a joke. Josh Allen takes one snap, and he's out of the game.
Dawkins celebrating.
Right.
Coming out.
Right.
And Dawkins is wearing the glasses and everything. Like, yeah, it was a complete joke yesterday.
A complete joke. And I to go back to how we started the conversation, I don't know if it was an owner who wanted to see more of Drake May in yesterday's game and less of the other kid, or if it was just as simple as, don't screw this up. We've got the first overall pick. But he, being the competitor that he is, he went out there and won the game anyways. Well,
how old is Robert Kraft? Hey, he's got to be, I'm going to guess 81. I'll look it up here in a second.
He's up there.
He's up there. He doesn't want to waste time. Like, what would lead you to believe he'd be better next year? Okay, they would sacrifice Alex Van Pelt, which they did, by the way. Is that going to fix anything? What would make you think that after that win over Cincinnati, that Jerod Mayo was going to be this great coach?
83, by the way.
83.
And for all the talk last week of who would you rather see, the playoffs are set the right way. The Broncos are the better of the three teams that were still fighting for a playoff spot. Better than the Dolphins. Better than the Bengals. I mean, if you're the Bengals, don't start the season 0-3. Don't lose to New England week 1 at home.
0-3, 1-5. Stop with that. Stop. Would have been a fun little story had you got in, but the odds were very long to begin with.
Denver is more consistent. They've been more consistent. And whether or not that's going to cause problems for the Bills? We'll find out Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock.
Do you know the line for this game?
Tell me.
8.5.
Bills favored by 8.5?
8.5. That's not the high one, though. Ravens, which that seems like, this looks too good to be true. Ravens favored by 9.5 over Pittsburgh?
Wow.
8.5 is a lot. They're just looking at the track record of the Bills, but holy cow. Sean Payton immediately after the game painting the underdog picture. We're young and we're hungry and
Yeah, he's saying all the right things.
Yeah.
He's a good coach. And if you're nervous about anything, be nervous about him coming up with schemes that Sean McDermott isn't going to be able to match, or putting his guys in advantageous positions against guys that don't match up well against the Bills' secondary or confuse the Bills' linebackers. I mean,
this is a week, though, where, the Sean McDermott okay, Bobby, tell me what the game plan is. Or there's Sean McDermott years and years going against Peyton as the defensive coordinator in Carolina.
You should know his tendencies by now.
by now. So, I would tend to think, well, this is the Bills fan mentality, right? And look, I fall into this too. Oh my gosh, Sean Payton's going to know what to do against the Bills. Maybe Sean McDermott might know what to do against Sean Payton.
Or what to do, how to rattle a rookie quarterback. I mean, McDermott's record against rookie quarterbacks pretty good. They're at home, where they didn't lose this season. I believe it's an 11-game win streak for the Buffalo Bills at home. And if you look back to the last time these two teams played last season with Russell Wilson as the Broncos quarterback, the Broncos getting the win on that ugly end-of-game sequence where they kicked the field goal. It was a 10 men on the field?
Yeah, that was 12 men on the field.
12 men on the field.
12 men on the field, and that was the last time the Buffalo Bills lost a regular season game.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, the last game that Ken Dorsey was the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills.
Correct. If you remember how that game went, Bills are favored. James Cook puts it on the turf, right? And that McDermott puts him in the doghouse. This is pre-Ray Davis. This is before Ty Johnson really came into his own. This isn't looking right for this Bills offense. The Bills actually got back into it late by running the football.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, though, and I think it's noteworthy how a defense can kind of turn within less than 2 calendar years. This was the team that gave up 70 points in September 2023. And here are the Broncos coming in with this young and hungry defense against Buffalo with, I don't know if you know this or not, Danger, but Patrick Surtain is one of the best corners in the game, and this is his first playoff game.
We're not talking about the players as much as we should be talking about the defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos, who has some experience. He's a diverse background.
Beth, Coach, it's a pleasure to be with you guys here on the field from up close, just watching Coach Vance Joseph from here. You watch him now on the screen. This diversity in his background is helping him a lot tonight. Quarterback at Colorado, defensive back in the NFL, and here he is having the time of his life this night, making his head coaching debut.
There's no justice for Sergio. We never heard from Sergio Dip again.
They didn't go back to him that night. No.
That will be all, Sergio. Thank you for
Funny how the roads keep crossing. That was Rex Ryan on the call that night.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, you'll have the Broncos in town 1 o'clock. I think most Bills fans are okay with that, right? A little routine. We like our Sunday 1 o'clock games.
Yeah, I think as opposed to, say, Saturday night.
Yep.
And you like that knowing, all right, who is coming up next? Will the Bills fall into the trap if Baltimore wins? Will the Bills fall into the trap of, oh, my gosh, we've got to make sure?
Oh, looking ahead?
Yeah.
I want to believe that Sean McDermott has these guys disciplined enough to not look ahead and to focus on the task at hand. I'm surprised that the spread is as big as it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does end up being a one-sided affair. And I think a lot of it has to do with just how physical the Bills' offensive line will be against Denver's defensive line if they can get that push up front and get things going in the run game, because we want to expect that Josh Allen is going to throw it all over the place. I don't know if I see it that way.
No, I don't see it that way either. And anybody is like, oh, the Bills are just all Josh Allen, nothing else. First team, not in Bills franchise history, in NFL history, to go 30-30 in terms of touchdowns on the ground and through the air. Yeah, you keep it on the ground there. And then Josh, boom, puts it over the top. We haven't even mentioned who's coming on the show today. Coming up 4 o'clock hour, Nate Geary, Buffalo Bills Radio Network. We'll kind of look ahead to Denver. And Greg Thompson from Cover One joining us next. We'll talk about some of these cap issues and just curious to get Greg's take on some of these younger players where, you and I are not breaking down the film. But it's not like, hey, that was Buffalo Joe standing out to me yesterday. So we'll kind of let Greg tell us what impressed him and what might not have.
Yeah, Greg does a great job there at Cover One. He'll be joining us here in a few. Nate Geary, the Buffalo Bills Radio Network, joining us next hour to break down Denver and the matchup here. And, well, Nate's also been a very, very vocal proponent of Josh Allen winning the MVP. And I have to log off because I feel like every time I check my feed, it's a battle between Josh and Lamar. It's gross at this point.
Can I suggest something? Will people split their vote? That happened once, Danger. It was Steve McNair and Peyton Manning, co-MVPs.
Co-MVPs.
I will not satisfy anyone.
I don't like that, but it's divisive. We won't go too scorched earth because I have a feeling that it's been talked about quite a bit here over the course of the last few weeks, and Nate's been a big part of it.
You know how serious they take that stuff? Remember we should get him on the show at some point again, Armando Salguero from OK. Like, he's a voter. Made the mistake of asking him on the air, who'd you vote for? No, cannot tell you that.
Yeah.
Will not tell you that. Shame on you for asking.
You can join us at any point this afternoon. Our lines are open. The Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. Be our wingman at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street in ER, goodsmokebbq.com. Greg Thompson, Cover One, joining us next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. AM 950 The Fan Rochester, weekday mornings via the Odyssey app, and make getting out of bed your favorite part of the day. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills an 8.5-point favorite to open up against the Denver Broncos. The wild card, 1 o'clock, the kickoff coming up on Sunday. Steve Tasker today on One Bills Live talking about that Bronco defense.
This is a tough matchup, I think, for Buffalo because it is strength on strength. The Broncos defense is real. It's no joke at all. They are really, really good. They got a gazillion sacks this year. They've got a ton of guys who can really get after the quarterback, and they got some corners that are no joke at all. They are really good.
Our coverage Sunday will begin at 9 a.m. We'll talk some Bills coming up next. Greg Thompson from Cover 1 joining us here in the Sports Bar. The Jaguars firing head coach Doug Peterson. The New York Giants retaining head coach Brian Dable and GM Joe Shane. Sabres hockey tonight, Buffalo hosting Washington. Our coverage will begin at 7. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Bills fall to the Patriots yesterday, but it gave us an opportunity to keep an eye on some of the younger talent that'll get opportunities for the Buffalo Bills here in years to come. We welcome in Greg Thompson. Cover 1 is where you can get Greg's work, and he does an unbelievable job tracking the cap. Greg, it's great to have you on with us. The Bills are in the postseason, albeit they lose in New England. We get to see some of these younger players kind of step up into a role and build themselves a little bit of a base for a future and a foundation here with the Buffalo Bills long term. How are you, bud?
Good, doing really well. Appreciate you having me on.
Greg, we saw a lot of these younger guys, whether it was the backup offensive line. None of the starters on the offensive line played yesterday, whether it was Joe Andreessen or somebody else. Did anybody in particular stand out to you yesterday in Foxborough?
So obviously we know that there was a very vanilla approach, and there was not a ton of aggression or trickery in what was going on with the game plan, but I think you touched on some of the areas that really interested me. If any of the film was worth breaking down, it was that offensive line. You know, guys that we know we probably have the most talented and deepest offensive line of Josh Allen's career, huge in part to the development of Aaron Cromer. You know, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't interested to see, you know, extended plays from Ryan Vandemark and Tylen Grable and Cedric Van Frank Granger. And, you know we see a lot of Alec Anderson already with his jumbo sets, but more pass blocking and things like that. And I thought it was very encouraging. I think that the depth they've built is very legitimate. They've created kind of a pipeline to bring guys in. I think fans should be really excited about the system and the program that Aaron Cromer has built here. And he's certainly got a lifetime contract if I have anything to do with it, with this team. And, you know, from a more significant manner of what's going on the rest of the season and the playoffs, I don't think there was a ton to take away from yesterday. I know McDermott talked about we needed to see more snaps from guys who had been injured, like a Curtis Samuel and specifically DeMar Hamlin. So we saw Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop and DeMar Hamlin play some reps there, but they were also playing in a very vanilla defense without the starting defensive line creating pressure in front of them. So I thought it was good they came out of it healthy. I don't think they looked great, but I also don't think they were put in a very advantageous situation. So this defense will go as far as the defensive line creates pressure, and those guys will be playing in the playoffs when that time comes.
And Greg, talk a little bit about the advantage of the Buffalo Bills doing what they did yesterday. McDermott allowing guys to go out there and earn some of these end-of-year bonuses and incentives for their performance. What kind of a statement that sends out to the rest of the league and to free agents that might be looking for greener pastures come this spring?
So, one, I want to couch it a little bit that, you know, I think these are all like tiebreakers or nice to haves. I don't think anyone is choosing Buffalo because of what happened yesterday. But with that caveat said, it's a big deal. That is a part of the culture that's built here. I'll give you a really good example. Jerry Jones all of a sudden, you know, forgot that Cooper Rush was barely a couple snaps away from earning his $250,000 bonus, and instead played Trey Lance every single snap of their game, and then said, oh, I wasn't aware of that. He's the general manager of the team. Of course he was aware of that. So in a situation like that with Buffalo where we're comically punting from New England's 36-yard line, and we're, bringing Von Miller in on the first pass rushing snap of the game, and we're funneling targets to Mac Hollins early on, and we're bringing James Cook back in to be able to tie the franchise record for rushing touchdowns. Those things matter because the guys work really, really hard to achieve those things. And I know we'll talk about the cap impact later. It's a non-zero. There technically is a strategic benefit where having a cold, calculated approach of no, screw you guys, that's a little bit of extra spending money. You can probably make a case that has more value than the intrinsic value of improving the camaraderie and the buy-in and the culture and the locker room. But when you pitch guys on this being a family environment and we're going to take care of our people and come to Buffalo and be the best version of yourself and all the other cliches that people kind of roll their eyes at sometimes, that yesterday was the embodiment of that. And following through on those things and actually helping those guys achieve what they set out for and earn things that you put out there in their contract as targets for them to work towards, it goes a long ways in reinforcing that that's not just empty, hollow coach speak, that that's a real sales pitch and that they follow through on it.
Greg Thompson, Cover One, joining us here in the Sports Bar. Greg, before we talk about next year and the cap, and you keep track of all that stuff, I thought your partner there, Eric Turner, did a great job breaking down the film because we hear it, from fans. Oh my gosh, he's lost a step. Matt Milano, what are they doing? And well, if you can kind of go over what was said in that breakdown, if you're looking at the film, Matt Milano and Dorian Williams, do you agree with the approach the Bills are kind of taking here as far as the split between the two, assuming this kind of stays here? And is it a cause for concern against the Broncos or any team that might like to run the football coming up in the postseason?
100%. Eric's phenomenal, so I appreciate you bringing attention to his incredible work. And what it really did, believe me, it's well worth watching. I hope everybody takes a chance to go check it out. A quick synopsis is it's hard to take the play-by-play results of what you see without the context of what they're asking people to do. And I'll give an example that fans will remember from years past. Last year, Terrell Dotson looked really, really good, but he looked really, really good in the situations we were asking him to play in. When you take into account that we were often taking him off the field in obvious passing downs and moving Jordan Poyer down as a dime linebacker with a third safety back in his spot replacing him, we weren't asking him to do things that he wasn't good at. So Dorian Williams is a very instinctive run linebacker, be able to come downhill and make plays and make tackles in the run game. Sometimes he might over pursue or get a little excited, but interpreting complex route combinations and knowing where to be in coverage situations, he's not in a position in his career to take advantage of his natural gifts to do that. Matt Milano brings that. He also has a lot of those instinctive elements of being ahead of the play, being able to sniff those things out. And Eric pointed out some of those flashes that, yes, it's very clear that he was not fully healthy as he's come back, but we're seeing enough of those things that you can trust him into the playoffs. But the Dorian Williams has earned a few areas where when we use a three linebacker set, which we're doing more than we ever have, we've been one of the heaviest nickel defenses in the league for years now because of how phenomenal Taron Johnson is. But that we found areas where we want to have three linebackers on the field, and Dorian Williams deserves that. Those base sets, jumbo sets, fullbacks, multiple tight ends, especially maybe a week from now if we get past Denver to be able to play at Baltimore. I think Dorian Williams will have a big role in a game like that. And Eric goes through the detail of why this is not unfair. This is not, holding back a younger player who's better and deferring to a veteran just out of trust. Matt Milano is still better at the things that matter, and he goes through a great amount of detail showing examples of that.
So, Greg, you brought it up, and I'm just curious to get your thoughts on how the Bills match up defensively against Denver and against who they might see the following week if it is indeed Baltimore, because we all have that bad taste in our mouths from the first time the Bills got beaten by Baltimore and the way they got beaten by them in a very physical kind of way. do the Bills have the kind of size and physicality on the defensive side of the ball for this time of the season? Because it feels like the way the seasons have ended in recent years for the Buffalo Bills, their size and their physicality have been a factor in them not able to advance to the championship game.
100%. So, one, I'd love to reassure everyone and tell them, yes, absolutely, we are going to be monsters out there, and we're just going to beat them up, and it's going to be fine. It's not. That's not what we're good at. The only reassurance I can give everyone is Baltimore is, and I mean this as a genuine compliment, they're the best front runners in the league. When they get a lead and can lean on you where you don't know if they're going to run or pass, and they get to use that threat of Derrick Henry versus Lamar and all the other pieces and the play action threat that comes off of that, and their defense gets to be one-dimensional, they're better at that than anyone else in the league. However, when they're not, they lose to the Raiders, and they lose to the Browns, and they lose in embarrassing fashion. They almost let the Russell Wilson-led Pittsburgh Steelers come back on them on Saturday, because when they don't get that, they're not a dynamic, balanced team. They need that front-runner mentality. So any of their playoff games, I can tell you probably who's going to win by the end of the first quarter, because they're that kind of team. If they get ahead of anybody, including Buffalo, unfortunately, they can run away from anybody. However, we are absolutely capable of creating the high-variance, aggressive plays where, yes, they're going to score, they're going to go down the field, there's going to be some of that bend but don't break stuff, but we've been able to make stops, be extra aggressive, create turnovers, because if we give Josh Allen a couple extra possessions, he can outscore anyone and is able to do that. So that's what this offseason and postseason stretch is going to need. It's going to need a white-hot Josh Allen and an incredibly aggressive, high-variance defense that steals extra possessions for Josh Allen. And if we do that for 4 straight games, we can lift up a trophy. And if we don't, we could have a frustrating ending, but that's what a one-and-done playoffs results in.
Yeah, Greg Thompson, Cover One, our guest. So this isn't, I'll put it this way. Last year was the Steelers, and you didn't know who was going to be at quarterback, and they came in. And the year before that, it was the Dolphins. And, well, even the Patriots the one year. Like, as far as the opening matchups, Greg, this, and again, it might be recency bias or whatever, but this feels a little different here. It's a different opponent. When you're looking at the Broncos, what's your initial thought about this matchup, Buffalo against Denver, 1 o'clock on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a high bar to say that this is our toughest wild card matchup when some of them were Skylar Thompson and Duck Hodges and those kind of people in the world. Like, yes, of course, this is tougher than that. I would say this is on par with that Phillip Rivers Colts team, in that it's a capable team that rightfully we're 7.5 to 8.5 point favorites for a reason. We're supposed to win this game. I fully expect them to win the game, and I expect some moments that are going to be frustrating and annoying because Sean Payton's a really good coach, and they have a phenomenal defense. Their defense is genuinely really, really good. Their defensive line gets a ton of pressure. Patrick Surtain probably deserves to be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. They are a very, very good team. Cortland Sutton's a big physical receiver. Those are the kind of guys that Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford struggle with because normally we're the more physical guy in that matchup. Cortland Sutton's a big monster. Like, he's tough. They have guys that can stretch us horizontally where you have to tackle out in space. I don't think we're going to shut them out and blow them out of the water. But eventually, I think we're going to start to pull away because we're simply the more talented team, and we have Josh Allen and they don't. And I don't think it's a ton more complicated than that, but I have enough respect for them that this is not Skylar Thompson. This is not some, punching bag of a team that we should embarrass. They're going to get their shots in. This defense is going to get some stops. We're probably going to have multiple drives in a row where we don't score, where it's going to be frustrating and people are going to get into their feelings while watching the game. But eventually we're going to pull away and we're going to win by 10 points because we're simply the better team.
Greg, take a walk with us on the scorched earth that is the conversation around this year's MVP, because I know that it's become it's almost toxic at this point. I'm afraid to open my feed to see what anybody is saying, and I know that wins may not be a quarterback stat, but winning at the minimum is the high standard. A quarterback win is everything. Is that enough to give Josh Allen the award this year?
So first, let me start with yes, he deserves it. I don't think it's fair that everyone piled on this offseason saying that we weren't even going to win the division or make the playoffs because we lost so much talent. And now they've conveniently made the argument that he might have a better surrounding cast than Baltimore does when they have 9 Pro Bowlers and we have 2. I think it's silly. I think that he deserves the award. I think he is the most valuable player. By definition, he's the most valuable player. However, Lamar Jackson's awesome. His season is statistically better than Josh's. If someone votes for him and gives them a first-place vote, they're not a crazy person. They're not out to get Josh. It's not anything crazy. There's 50 voters. I expect like 30 first-place votes for Josh and 20 for Lamar. Maybe a couple people sneak in a Burrow or a Saquon. But I do think Josh deserves it. I think he's going to win it. And honestly, I think some of it will be as simple as there are people who have voted for Lamar twice already, and they think Josh deserves this moment. And because Lamar's awesome and deserves a couple MVPs, and so does Josh. Josh is a player. This was an MVP caliber season. I think the little things of the surrounding cast and the win total and earning the higher seed and some of those different pieces with the expectations coming into the year, I think that's enough when the stats are very close and both are excellent MVP caliber seasons. I think that's close enough. However, I want to give you a little side project I've been thinking about with Lamar Jackson winning the MVP, because I want how the Texas teammates for the 2005 Rose Bowl showed up for Vince Young and told the USC team at the coin flip, we're here for our boys Heisman, and then they went out and beat the team for Vince Young and for that team, and maybe the greatest college game ever. That's now my movie script moment that I want.
Oh, we were looking at. I'd be totally fine with Pittsburgh winning Saturday night, Greg. Greg Thompson covering one. Last one for me as we're fighting through the phone issue here. Greg, as far as the cap next year and seeing Von Miller get his bonus yesterday, the bill will come due for that in the 2025 cap. How are the Bills set up for the cap in 2025?
They're totally fine. We don't have the most cap space in the league. Nobody even knows what it is right now. A lot of the different websites have a number out there that's a projection. It's changed 3 times last year from what people projected. I think it's going to be – I think that because it changed multiple times, those websites we all use are being intentionally conservative with what that number is. I think it's going to be $15 to $20 million higher than what they have listed right now. The Bills have plenty of moves they can make to shuffle things around. They have an awful lot of their starters already locked in, and some easy retention guys that are just exclusive rights free agents. As an example, they have all 10 of their top offensive linemen back if they want them without any additional changes to be made. So maybe 20 of their 22 starters are locked in. So there's not a ton of big issues. They're probably going to have 25 to 30 million in actually spendable money. And a good chunk of that probably will be used on extensions for Terrell Bernard, Christian Benford, Khalil Shakir. It won't soak up a ton of that money next year. Like this year, we gave Spencer Brown an extension, and he went from $2.7 million to $2.9 million. His big money starts later. A lot of those won't start altogether, but then they'll set some of that money aside because that's where it's going to go. They could probably do one splashy move if they want to, and it might be retaining Amari Cooper. That might be the splash. But they can probably do one splashy type move and then be fine, and they're going to have an exceptional, very talented team next year because they'll be out of all those dead cap hits and everything. So they're not going to be the biggest spenders in free agency, but they're also not going to have another Black Wednesday where they have to purge a bunch of well-known names just to get under the cap.
I was going to ask you about that, Greg. Are there names that might surprise us when the season is done and they start reevaluating what that cap is going to look like? I mean, we saw Von Miller get his incentive yesterday for the sack. Is Von Miller somebody that they could move off of, move away from after this season? And the second part of what I wanted to ask you is, at what point do they say, Josh Allen, here you go, here's an extension, we've restructured your deal?
So I'll answer the second part first. They set up Josh Allen when they redid his contract this offseason. They did it for both 2024 and 2025. That doesn't mean they can't do the new extension this summer. Of course they could. But that makes me think his new rip-it-up, new highest-paid quarterback in the league deal will come in 2026. I think it could be like $70 million a year, and he deserves every penny of it. I don't care how much they pay him. There's no number that's too high. He's going to be paid the highest of anybody in the league, and he deserves more than what he's going to get. I think it's in 2026. We'll see. As for the other one, the good news is there is no one they have to cut. There are 3 names that are going to be on the borderline of, hey, are you worth exactly how much we're going to have to pay you? And do we eat a little bit of dead cap that we don't really want to in order to save a little bit of money, but not that much money? And that's Von Miller, Tyler Bass, and Dawson Knox. I don't think they're going to release any of them. I kind of think all 3 of them might be back. I think Von Miller is the most likely that they could move on from with a similar post-June 1st move that they did with Tre'Davious White. But I don't think that's going to be the case. The way they redid Matt Milano's contract, it literally cost the same for him to be on the team or to be cut. So I think he's going to be on the team. So they don't have anybody who is an obvious, like, oh, man, no, that contract, there's no way they're going to keep that. They had some of those obvious names this past offseason. There's no one like that out there, but there are a couple that are probably being paid a little bit more than what they're worth, but the dead cap is higher than what you would like. So I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll bring in a competition for Tyler Bass. I think Dawson Knox is pretty safe, and I think Von Miller will depend if they do anything with Gregory Rousseau or bringing in another flashy name in pass rusher.
Greg Thompson, Cover One. Greg, great stuff here. Tell everyone, our audience, where they can get more of your work.
Absolutely. You can come anywhere that you're listening to this great show. You can also listen to us at Cover One. So if you're listening online and not on the radio, anywhere you find them, you'll be able to find us. Search for Cover One on YouTube. You can find our shows there, or find me on Twitter at Greg Thompson.
You're the best, Greg. Safe travels. Thanks for making some time for us, and let's talk again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
You got it. There's Greg Thompson, Cover One, breaking down the end of the season here for the Buffalo Bills, looking at some of these players who got an opportunity and what it might mean for their future, and what the Bills roster might look like here with the cap.
He brought up 3 names, and I'm going to say yes, no, maybe. No, I don't think Von Miller is on this team next year.
Really?
I don't think so, Danger. I at this point, like, what would make you think? I maybe I'm wrong on that.
Just value. The only reason why I would say I wouldn't be surprised if he is because of how much they actually reduced his salary. And if you're talking about paying a guy $1.5 million and incentivizing him the way they did this year, I think it's a low risk, high reward.
Maybe on Dawson Knox. I think Dawson Knox they go to and say, hey, Dawson, we got to work on this. It's a little too high. And I bet he would say yes. The one I'm not sure about is Tyler Bass. I think they draft somebody, and we might have a old-fashioned competition. Or if they don't draft somebody, you will have another kicker at Fisher coming up.
Yeah, bring another kicker into Fisher. I don't necessarily want to see them use a draft pick on a kicker. But based on what we've seen this season, through the duration of the season with Tyler Bass, I think a little competition probably helps him out. And honestly, I think this season bringing in some competition when he was struggling, he hasn't been perfect, but he's been better since that happened.
I mean, the idea that the Detroit kicker basically didn't kick and he was playing soccer, and Aubrey in Dallas, like, he was playing for Toronto FC too. Like, you could find kickers.
Yeah, I guess if there's a knock, I mean, aside from the season he's had this year, the accuracy issues, the distance, the strength. Can you get a guy who makes 55 look as automatic as some of these kickers in the NFL have already made it look? Because I think there's a handful of kickers that when you get anything beyond 50, you start to wonder, like, there's no way they're making that, especially in Buffalo, especially if it's cold. No chance. I'd like to know that they have a kicker that makes 55 to 60 look almost routine.
Well, that, and I want a kicker that, okay, they scored a touchdown, now I'm going to go grab a snack. I don't have to wait around for the extra point. Like, that, as far as things that concern me yesterday, okay, Taylor Rapp just kind of, oh, yeah, that's right, I'm supposed to play today. That play was awful. And then Bass missing an extra point there.
Right. Yes, it's not hasn't been a great season for Tyler Bass. There's no question about it. The great stuff there from Greg. Really appreciate that, and helping him, or having him help us clarify what the future might look like here as far as the Bills roster. And he paints a pretty rosy picture. There's not a lot there in terms of surprises that we will see here come the offseason. And a lot of the guys that you have out on the field now are the guys that they're going to plan on having on the field again next season, which is fantastic. You just hope the guys continue to grow and continue to develop. Nate Geary from the Buffalo Bills Radio Network and our Odyssey Sports sister station, WGR, stops by the sports bar next. We'll talk to him here in the 4 o'clock hour. Also coming up next, and we touched on it a little bit with Greg. When I saw this, I'm like, I did the double take. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the more I thought about it, and I heard other people say it, I'm like, that son of a bitch. Jerry Jones, what have you done? You are evil incarnate. What have you done?
Well, just own up to it. Just to stand out there and lie.
Straight up liar.
Yeah, I read this morning from Yahoo Fantasy. Buffalo Bills, on their list of fantasy busts, they have one player that showed up. I'm like, wait a second. This is like one of the best offenses in not Bills history, league history. Yeah, we're going to go down that path, and I think we can all kind of rest our head here. Don't worry about it. Also, we haven't talked much about the other side of the bracket, the NFC. I think there's one coach that is just super, super arrogant. I kind of like it, actually.
All right, we'll get into that and more next. Nate Geary stopping by before 5 o'clock as well. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
You're listening to the Sports Bar.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick.
Is that a corn?
That ain't no corn.
What?
That's a super corn!
Oh, wow. Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
AM, WBEE HD2 Rochester, and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills open as an 8.5-point favorite against the Denver Broncos. Head coach Sean McDermott to talk to reporters here shortly. Steve Tasker today on One Bills Live saying this is going to be a tough opponent.
The Broncos are a really good football team. Great defense, young, talented quarterback in Bo Nix. And if you saw that yesterday, he had a chance to show it all yesterday.
Yep.
And he did. He showed out. That dude can run. He's like Josh Allen for the Broncos. He can do it all. Yeah, this is a tough game. The Broncos are for real.
Our coverage Sunday will begin at 9 a.m. Two teams looking for a head coach putting in requests to talk to Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, that being the Jets and the New Orleans Saints. The Jaguars firing head coach Doug Peterson. The Giants retaining Brian Dable and Joe Shane. Sabres taking on Washington tonight. Our coverage will begin at 7. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Wild card weekend, Sunday, Broncos, Bills.
This is a 1 o'clock game.
Touchdown, Denver, 93 yards. Bo Nix.
Oh, Bo Nix are good for him.
Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Yeah!
Go Bills.
Super wild card weekend.
Bo Nix, rookie quarterback, first playoff game on the road in Buffalo. Sean McDermott's been hell on rookie quarterbacks.
Denver are 9-point dogs at Buffalo.
9 times.
9.
Mike Danger.
Denver's defense, pretty good on paper, talent-wise. Bills are a superior team, and they should beat Denver.
Gene Battaglia.
What if this is the magical season? Is this the year? Is this finally it? Finally, the elements are there.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Black Monday in the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us. Thanks for listening. 95.7 FM, AM 950. You can hear us in the free-to-download Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch us on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, even on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. I emailed one of my Bills fans buddies earlier today. I said, you book your trip to New Orleans yet? This could be the year. You know what his response was? They're going to lose to Denver. Sean McDermott gets fired. I'm like, oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Come
neurotic
on.
Bills fans are out there. Insecure, neurotic Bills fans still exist, even though they're the 2 seed, even though they're going in a lot healthier this season than last season.
That's over the top. But as far as first-round opponents, and Greg Thompson brought up the Colts, that's almost like the playoff game we forget about.
Yeah.
But
we're traumatized from it.
Yeah, as far as opening up at home, this is way more tougher than last year's Steelers team, way more tougher than Skylar Thompson. Like, this is a team that is on the rise. And funny, Bo Nix, because in the history of the Sports Bar, you always used to joke about Bo Nix because he started as a freshman at Auburn in 2019.
I always thought, like, oh, Bo Nix, that's the guy that backed up Cam Newton at Auburn. Is that who that is? Like, he played college football for like 12 seasons? Yeah. That Bo Nix? Okay. So he's coming in as a rookie at age 32. What are we... Chris Winkie version 2.0. I mean, he just felt like he played college ball forever.
Oh, he had his cliches down talking with Tracy last night right after that impressive 38-0 win or whatever it was.
Yeah, well, it worked out. I think it worked out the way it should have worked out because let's face it, if you look at the 3 teams that were vying for that last spot in the AFC, it was actually Denver who through the course of the season was the most consistent. Cincinnati, don't lose to New England week 1 at home. Don't start the season the way you started the season. You don't deserve to be in the postseason when you start that poorly. And Miami, you lost to the Jets. Okay, next case. You lost to the Jets, who a week ago looked like they had completely given up on the season.
Let me ask you a question because we're going to be certainly looking at the Bills and Broncos, but what would you rather have as a Bills fan? Ready? Because for the sake of this argument, I'm going to assume the Chargers win in Houston. Okay, maybe the Texans have suddenly figured this out. Would you rather have Pittsburgh knocking off Baltimore? You don't have to worry about the Ravens. Phew. Okay, and you would get the Chargers then going you would get the Steelers going to Kansas City.
Right.
Who we would assume Kansas City would just kind
So
of
you
roll
want
up.
upsets here. You want actually the Chargers are favored, right? So you'd want the Chargers to beat the Texans, and you'd want the Steelers to beat the Ravens.
In that scenario, okay, then you would get the Steelers going to Arrowhead. And I think Arrowhead, they would take it pretty. I don't think they would give the Steelers any.
And the Chargers would come to Orchard Park.
Right. Or would you rather have it the other way around, meaning the Chargers? Yes, you're going to get the Ravens next round. I think that's what everybody should brace for. But what about the Chargers and Chiefs in a divisional round matchup?
Oh, okay.
Which would you rather have for Kansas City? Would you rather face Baltimore? Because honestly, Danger, if you could get past Baltimore, I could see the Chargers knocking out Kansas City.
If you can get past Baltimore, if the Bills get past the Broncos and they get past Baltimore, I think the Bills are going to the Super Bowl at that point. The AFC Championship game is whoever. It's the Chiefs, fine. It's the whoever's left, it's fine. They're beating that team. You get past Baltimore, you're going to the Super Bowl. I don't want to see Baltimore. I would like to avoid seeing Baltimore if at all possible. I thought that having at the time when the Steelers were kind of rolling and it looked like they were going to win the division, I'm like, you know what? Let the Chiefs have to deal with the Ravens and wait until you have to see the Ravens and hope that you can see the Ravens potentially in Orchard Park for the AFC Championship game and let Kansas City have to deal with them. But now, well, as the 2 seed and Baltimore winning the North, you're going to have to face Baltimore if they take care of Pittsburgh and if you take care of Denver.
I'm okay with somebody knocking out Kansas City. I know some Bills fans may want to write the story like this because when Peyton Manning got his first Super Bowl, well, he did it over Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game, and that helped write the story. When the Red Sox finally won the World Series after 100 years or whatever it was, well, they had to beat the Yankees along the way, the team that had tortured them. I don't want – like, if somebody knocks off the Chiefs and you don't have to go to Arrowhead, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that either. We'll have Nate Geary stopping by the Sports Bar, WGR, and the Buffalo Bills Radio Network. He'll be stopping by the Sports Bar here in about 15 minutes or so. We'll start to preview Sunday's matchup against the Denver Broncos. 1 o'clock kickoff. You'll hear the action on the Fan Rochester.
Yeah, we'll get to some takes in a second. We always have time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Our buddy Brad in Rochester. What's up, Brad?
Hey, Brad.
Hey, 2 things. One, when Lamar shows up in the playoffs, that'll be a first. And then second, could you have predicted that the 2 teams with the most dead cap were going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, right.
Let alone meet.
Right. Yeah. Brad, I said this last week, and I'm going to say this often. We're not here because we're right all the time. We're here because we have opinions on a lot of things. But we don't have this job because we're always right. We have this job because we always have opinions. And at the start of the season, it was my opinion that a team that carries as much dead cap as the team like the Bills or the Broncos, that neither team is making the postseason. You don't have enough talent on the roster. There's just no way. And it's just another check in the box of the cap is a myth, that the cap doesn't matter as much as we make it matter, that if you have it structured if you're paying the right guys and you have the right culture and what Sean Payton did in moving on from a future Hall of Famer at quarterback, eating all of that money, drafting a rookie quarterback, starting him immediately, hanging with him through an early tough season. Sean Payton's done an unbelievable job with the Broncos, and you could say the same thing about McDermott with the Bills. I don't think either of them are going to win Coach of the Year, but they're both worthy nominees when you look at what they were faced with in terms of building a roster with their GMs dealing with that much dead cap.
Good call, Greg. Brad, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Brad, always appreciate your calls, even though when I can't remember your name. Yahoo Fantasy today, Danger, wrote about who the fantasy busts were in 2024. And it wasn't our buddy Andy Behrens who wrote this. It was Kate Magdziuk. Okay, so Kate wrote this piece, and she did it round by one. Poor value where you drafted him. Of course, first round, McCaffrey, he's a bust. Breece Hall is a bust.
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr., she called him a bust.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of where he was drafted, Patrick Mahomes, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, and on this list is a Buffalo Bill.
Okay.
You want to venture a guess?
I imagine it would be Dalton Kincaid.
It was Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah.
The author points out, rightfully so, there were 8 players on the Bills to get at least 30 targets. No one Bills player got to 100 targets this year. The author concluding that the tight end position is a lost cause. I wouldn't connect those dots. I wouldn't go that far. But we knew coming out of the Diggs era, the Bills wanted to spread it around. That they did. And look, Kincaid got hurt in the Seattle game too. I think in year 3, Danger, just file this one away. You're going to get Kincaid cheap. I think Kincaid year 3 is going to provide some really nice numbers.
I think Kincaid year 3 will do what Kincaid year 2 did. I think that this offense is going to remain, unless they find a way to really showcase or highlight one of these guys in a significant way, maybe Keon Coleman. But it has been and worked as a spread it around, everybody eats kind of offense. And that's great for winning football games. It's not great if you're looking for fantasy production for your team. And if you're thinking just specifically about tight end, I wouldn't say it's a wasteland. I mean, if you're able to get Brock Bowers, I think you're feeling pretty good about the tight end position. The person who took that chance or found that guy, or if he wasn't drafted, you're feeling pretty good about the output you got at the position this year.
Yeah, I think if you spent money on Laporta or maybe Dallas Goedert, I mean, there was some other, whoever Dallas trotted out there, the Cowboys. I mean, there were some areas that you could have stepped into, but I do think Kincaid's numbers will go up next year, particularly if Dawson Knox, they move off.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting thing to watch. Man, it was funny. I don't know if it's PTSD from this fantasy season, but it was hard for me to not look at the games this weekend and look for matchups where my guys were like, oh, God, it's over.
Is there – somebody's got to come up because, yes, the answer, I guess, is daily fantasy if you wanted that. But if you made it all the way your championship game and then you get the games yesterday, it felt like a preseason game. Like you're just watching this for fun.
I was watching the Bears and the Packers with my friend Tony at what I call Canton, Greece. His man cave is like the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's especially if you're a Bears fan like I am, and everything down there is just autographs and helmets and a replica of the Super Bowl 20 trophy. And we're watching the game, and he's making comments about players getting him points in fantasy. I'm like, dude, you can't still be playing. He's like, no. It's a season-long league, but it's baseball where you just accumulate points, and the more points you have when it's all said and done, based on who you start every single week, you're the winner. And he was still in it. I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's a format that I've never participated in, but that's a format that would still make Week 18 somewhat relevant. I mean, you'd have to kind of pick and choose who you're going to start and look for other places, knowing that a Josh Allen isn't going to play. Who's your quarterback going to be?
I'm sure. Like, did we do that when we were doing the guillotine? I'm sure we did. Like, went all the way to the end.
We go to the final week. Yeah,
final week.
Absolutely right.
Danger. Before you take, what the hell were the Rams doing yesterday? Look, I get it. You want to rest your guys, but unlike the Bills, let's say, you didn't have your seed locked in. By losing to Seattle, LA falls from 3rd to 4th. And you're thinking, well, who cares? It's the command. Well, if the seeds hold, that means you would get the Vikings. And if you beat the Vikings, if the seeds hold, you would get the Lions in back-to-back weeks. 14-2 team, 14-2 team, the Vikings and Lions back-to-back weeks, unless Sean McVay, Rams head coach Sean McVay, is arrogant enough to think that's actually the better path. Right. My team in a dome, Sam Darnold's not going to play us, and I know what I could do against Jared Goff.
So intriguing. Sam Darnold did not have a good game last night against the Lions. And I know when you talk about arrogance, I know a lot of people want to point to Dan Campbell and a guy who, always goes for it on 4th down, and that's going to eventually come back and bite him in the ass. I mean, what it came down to last night was essentially 4th down plays. The Lions made them. The Vikings did not. The Vikings took their chances and didn't convert on 4th down. The Lions are just better at 4th down plays. In terms of McVay, that underlying kind of story that never was really confirmed, just kind of like rumors and whispers of the rift between McVay and Jared Goff over some things that Goff may have said without McVay knowing it that led to them moving on from him. If that is indeed true, then it just adds this different layer of intrigue. And I think, McVay is going to stick it to his former quarterback. I also think that stat that I keep propping up, that I keep telling you about, that it's just such an unbelievable stat to me that I can't let it exit my mind. It has me completely gripped through the postseason. The stat is, there hasn't been, since the Kelly era, since the Four Falls of Buffalo, there hasn't been a quarterback who has made his debut in the Super Bowl and lost to make it back to a Super Bowl, let alone win, to make it even back to a Super Bowl.
So, but this is Goff with a different team.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Nope, doesn't matter. And maybe, look, all records break and all trends eventually come to an end. But this is a pretty significant trend that's occurred since the early 90s. And it would eliminate guys from like Goff, guys like Hurts, that have made it to the Super Bowl. Their first time they made it, they lost. History has shown that they don't make it back.
If you have a 5 or 6 year old, when you get home tonight, just ask them, hey, which direction does the sun rise? Which direction does the sun set? Because they'll tell you, okay, it rises in the east and it sets in the west. Yep. You know more than Jared Goff. Danger, you don't remember that story. So this was when we were getting on the air, and the Rams were the Hard Knocks team. And this was Jeff Fisher. We're not going to go 8-8. Okay, this is when they played, just 16 games.
Yeah.
We're on a record-setting pace with our punt team.
Missed that guy.
This was Jared Goff's rookie year, and he did not know. And he took pleasure in not knowing. I was like, wow, that's your quarterback. Wow, it's like that old bit from the 80s. I know football. You don't need to know. Like, I could imagine if you're dealing with somebody like that, Sean McVay might have been, yeah, you know what? I think I could rather work with somebody else.
Can upgrade with Stafford. Stafford, by the way, because he won his debut in the Super Bowl, is actually eligible to go back to the Super Bowl under this stat that I just shared with you. So Stafford would be okay. Mahomes, obviously, would be okay.
Jalen Hurts
would
not be okay.
That's right, because he lost to the Chiefs in his debut in the Super Bowl. He won't even make it back. I'm so fascinated by that. Like, that is my guiding star for predicting what happens this postseason when you have these matchups. If it comes down to Goff and Darnold or Goff and Mayfield, I'm gonna go with the guy who hasn't made it to the Super Bowl. I'm going to say, oh, yeah, Mayfield. I'll take Mayfield over Goff.
Philadelphia is one of those weird teams, though, because I think they've got a pass. I think that's an easy matchup they've got against the Packers. I really do.
Oh, that game was, by the way, the Packers not playing their best football right now, and I'm putting it mildly, to lose to the Bears. I got emotional. I'm like, good for them. I'm glad they ended their losing streak, and they beat Green Bay for the first time since, 2018. It was ridiculous. Which is all I want. I just want to see Green Bay suffer. That's really all I want. I just want to see the Packers lose.
Congratulations on your successful season.
I'm wearing my Bears hat today. I'm in celebration. The season is finally over. I can breathe deep and wipe the slate clean. You can look far and wide across the vast landscape of professional sports owners. But for me, it is still Jerry Jones, resting on his throne of lies and wearing the crown of worst owner in pro sports for me. And your latest example was just yesterday. Were you like me? Oh, look, hey, Trey Lance got the start. Dallas must really want to see what they have in him. Or in a week where a lot of player incentives were kicking in, like we saw with Von Miller and Mike Evans and the like. Listen to this. Cooper Rush, as you all know, has been starting games for the Cowboys, with Dak Prescott being ruled out for the season, his hamstring injury. Now, it's not like Rush was lighting the world on fire, but he got him a couple of wins. Probably could make the case that he gives you the best chance to win, given that he's been playing since Prescott got injured. Nice little bonus incentive of $250,000 kicked in for Rush earlier this year when he played 45% of the team's snaps. Now, going into yesterday's game, he had better than 52% of the team's snaps at quarterback. Here's where Jerry Jones becomes the most horrible real-life supervillain you've ever heard of. Rush had a second incentive in his contract where he'd make an additional $250,000 for starting 55% of the team's snaps. That's a number he would have hit had he played something like 60 snaps in yesterday's game, but he didn't play. Lance did. The team announced the plan to start Lance about 90 minutes before kickoff. This was totally calculated by Jerry, cold-blooded. And if I'm Cooper Rush, I'm pissed off today. I don't know what his contract situation is, but get me out of Dallas. Get me away from this guy. He's preventing me from earning what I deserve.
Well, there's another layer to this, Danger, and it's this. Okay, so somebody's thinking out there listening to this right now, well, you had Trey Lance as a guy number 3 overall. This would be the time to take a look at him, right?
Yes. I hear that.
He's a free agent after this game. So what are you doing? He's showcasing himself for the rest of the world out there. It's not like he would benefit Dallas. And if somehow all of a sudden you say, wow, we had this all along, then it's going to cost you.
That's right.
You fools.
Yes. He is evil. I would leave if I was Cooper Rush. I think Cooper Rush is still under contract, so he's going to have to grin and bear it. And okay. Remember that time you cost me $250,000 because you wanted to start a pending free agent instead of me in week 18? Ooh. Thanks, Jerry. That was nice of you.
Do you want me to read this headline or you want to read the headline?
No, you can read it.
According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, the Chicago Bears have requested to talk to Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy about their vacancy.
You know, we were laughing earlier about everybody that's been requested by the Jets to talk about their offensive coordinator position. I don't know if they left you a voicemail, Gino. I think I got my voicemail earlier this morning from Woody Johnson. They're literally requesting interviews with everybody. And there's one part of me that's like, why? Why are you wasting your time with? But then there's another part of me that's like, why not? Why not ask everybody? Talk to everybody. Learn as much. Is there any harm in learning as much as you can about every candidate and how they view your organization and how they view what you have on the roster, and take that and apply that to whoever it is you actually hire as the head coach? I don't know. I don't want Mike McCarthy to be the next Bears head coach, but I'd love to know what Mike McCarthy thinks about the rivalry between the Bears and the Packers and how the Bears can maybe further exploit Green Bay and what they left behind. And if you're Ryan Poles, and it sounds like he's going to be the GM of the Bears, the pride of Section 5. If you're Ryan Poles, you want to learn more about that rivalry, more about that organization, more about how they operate, how they move. So take as many of those interviews as you can and learn as much as you can.
Yeah, and along those lines, Joe Brady has been requested by the Jets. He's on that long list there, too.
And New Orleans as well for Joe Brady.
Joe Brady, right.
Yeah, so we'll talk Bills-Broncos next with Nate Geary. You hear him on WGR. You hear him on the Buffalo Bills Radio Network. You hear him next on The Fan.
FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester. Ever wished your smart speaker could provide live sports updates without breaking a sweat? Tell it to play 95.7 The Fan and watch it become your personal sports commentator. The Fan, Rochester. Sports Update.
Bills head coach Sean McDermott says there was one injury to come out of yesterday's loss in New England. Brendan Codrington has a hamstring pull. They'll monitor that throughout the week. The Bills 8.5-point favorites against Denver. Steve Tasker on the Broncos defense.
This is a tough matchup, I think, for Buffalo because it is strength on strength. The Broncos defense is real. It's no joke at all. They are really, really good. They got a gazillion sacks this year. They've got a ton of guys who can really get after the quarterback, and they got some corners that are no joke at all. They are really good.
Coverage Sunday begins at 9 a.m. Nate Geary, the Buffalo Bills Radio Network, joining us next year in the Sports Bar. Both the Jets and the Saints have put in requests to talk to Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Sabres hockey tonight, Buffalo hosting Washington. Our coverage will begin at 7. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Back in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia as the Bills are set to embark on their playoff journey. In a lot of ways, it feels different than years past as we welcome Nate Geary in from the Buffalo Bills Radio Network and our Odyssey Sports sister station, WGR. I mean, few things, Nate. One, it feels like they're going into this postseason healthier than they have certainly last year and the year before even, I would say, as well. But the thing that makes it more different for me is that the Broncos feel like a more worthy opponent than they've seen in that wild card round here the last couple of seasons. What are your thoughts?
Oh, what, Mason Rudolph didn't do it for you last year?
Not really.
No, it didn't keep you up at night?
Not really.
No, I would agree. This is I also want to keep into perspective. This happens in the NFL, whether it's the MVP race or the, whatever season-long competition, award, whatever, is there tends to be that recency bias, right? And this is a team that has gone through some pretty difficult stretches this year, especially offensively. I don't want to maybe overreact to what they did to the, backups of Kansas City yesterday. And say, oh man, this is, some world-beating offense, and Bills should be really concerned. But I do want to, acknowledge that from a defensive perspective, I think it's the number 2 defense in football. They're the number 1 defense in terms of sacks. They blitz more than anybody in the league. But I think that if you ask me, that's strength on strength. You have the Bills, who I think one of the best offensive lines in football, and Josh Allen, who's one of the best quarterbacks in football against the blitz. So it's right there. It's, that's iron sharpens metal, or iron sharpens iron there. We'll see which of those two strengths comes out on top. And I think if I was looking at Denver the way that I was looking at the Bills, Denver is built almost in the inverse of Buffalo, right? Where their defense is kind of how you would look at the Bills offensively. And right now, how you look at the Bills defensively, which is, I'm not here to I don't think the Bills have a top 5 defense any longer. They don't have a bottom 5, bottom 10. They're kind of middle of the pack. And that's kind of how I would describe their offense. So, the big difference between, the Bills having an upper echelon offense and kind of a middle of the road defense is they have, probably the MVP, and the Denver Broncos don't. So I think to me, it's a good matchup. I like Bo Nix. I think he's really developed very well. I think he went to the perfect program to go play under a coach in Sean Payton that, kind of handpicked him. And he's certainly gotten the most out of him, especially in this kind of final stretch run of the season.
Do the Broncos have a good enough running game, Nate, to control this game? To me, if you're like you hit on it there, I look, and maybe my opinion here is warped by fantasy football because, hey, Audric Estimeo, he didn't really get the opportunities, or McLaughlin, or whoever it is. But is this a Denver offense that somehow can control the ball against Buffalo?
I don't think so. They don't really have that running attack that I think. If you're the Bills or Bills fans going into this week thinking, man, you're just trying not to draw a team because you're going to probably have to face Baltimore if you win. That's got that power run game. And, Audric Estime has really kind of not taken over that room, but really over the last couple of weeks been the guy that they've turned to, especially in the red zone. They got Julio McLaughlin. You had mentioned there, McLaughlin. And they also have Williams, too, I think, who they drafted in the first round a couple of years ago. But, they don't necessarily have the, I think, downhill running attack that would, historically, or at least the last couple of seasons, given the Bills' fits. But, if they can get their running game going a little bit, it opens up that play action for Bo Nix, and I think that's definitely an area of concern. And what you're hoping for is, and I guess the good news is you're talking about kind of how you feel this year versus last year or in years past is, the defense is healthy. And that's important for a matchup like this where this is going to be the kind of game. And listen, I'm of the mind that when you get to the playoffs, that's really where defenses tend to be the most important. And that's really where the Bills have fallen short. And when you've got the defensive head coach, you kind of need more from this defense over the last couple of seasons. I'm thinking against the Bengals 2 years ago and, last year against Kansas City, you just needed a better defensive performance. And, to their, maybe no fault of their own, they just were down to A.J. Klein and pieces that they really did not intend to be playing in such a meaningful game last year. So being healthy, I think, having the numbers and the pieces up front, I'm not overly concerned with this Denver Broncos running game. No.
So let's talk a little bit about the trenches, because I feel like the physicality up front, defensive line and offensive line, are going to be the key for the Bills and their success here in the postseason. And you hear a lot of people talk about what the Eagles have, or certainly what the Ravens have. How do the Bills' defensive line? Does the Bills' defensive line match up against Denver's offensive line? Are they going to be able to make Bo Nix a little uncomfortable in the pocket? And are they going to be able to? We mentioned slowing down their run game because they might not have the kind of talented backfield that the Bills will see later in the postseason. But what about that matchup, Broncos offensive line versus the undersized defensive line of the Bills?
Yeah, Garrett Bowles, their left tackle, is a very good player. But overall, it's not a top 2, top 3 offensive line. It's pretty good. Definitely something that when you look at from the perspective of they're not a top flight rushing attack. They're kind of middle of the road passing attack. So for me, I look at it and I say, all right, where are the areas the Bills can really get after this team? And listen, at the end of the day, what the Bills have historically not been able to do when they've gotten to the playoffs is get pressure with 4. They haven't done that, I think, consistently this year. They got to turn that on come the playoffs here, right? Like this week and moving forward, they're really going to have to try to generate as much pressure as they can with 4. But I think this is a matchup against a rookie quarterback on the road. They're not going to be able to do a lot of communication at the line of scrimmage. It's going to be silent count. That's an advantage for the Bills. And I think it will be very difficult for a guy like Bo Nix making his first playoff start. And you can look at it both directions, right? He's young, doesn't know any better, and he's, coming off a game where he threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Maybe he doesn't know any better and he's just going to go out there and play ball. But, being able to simulate some pressure, show blitz, back out of it, show edge blitz and bring it up the center and doing some exotic stuff. This is my opinion, especially with the injuries to the safeties going over the last month of the season. And Josh Allen even mentioned it from an offensive perspective last week, talking about at this point in the year, they're kind of saving the important stuff for the playoffs. I think the Bills defensively have been playing pretty darn vanilla football. There's not a lot of exotic blitz looks. Not that that's really ever been their game, but I would bet that they're going to do everything they can pre-snap to try to force them to have to communicate with Bills Mafia going absolutely insane in the background. So I think for me it comes down to, can you generate the pressure and can you force a rookie quarterback who has made mistakes this year back into a bad throw here or, a bad decision there, and that could absolutely change the tides of this game.
Nate Gary, Buffalo Bills Radio Network. Usually when we're talking to you on a Monday night, we're reviewing what happened yesterday, and That was just weird. I mean, do you have any takeaways from the Bills' loss in New England?
Not much. I mean, I don't know that there was really much to take away. It was like after the first play, after Josh Allen walked off the field, I was like, all right, well, I mean, we could turn on Red Zone if you guys want. We don't have to watch this. It just was one of those games where the NFL has to try to figure out how to make these games for everybody. There's got to be some kind of stake. It felt like in the NFC, one game, essentially, 2 games had playoff implications. The rest were completely meaningless. And, you know, when the league extended the season by a game, I'm not going to sit here and blame it because it would have happened if it was week 17 versus week 18 a couple of years ago because the same thing was happening. But there hasn't been a lot of incentive to play with just one bye week to go after now. Teams are using week 18 when they've already clinched and they've got a division to rest their starters. And, you know, the Patriots, I don't understand why Drake May went out there for a drive if they were planning on, you know, playing Joe Milton the whole game. Him playing 3 plays and then, you know, taking a hit really didn't make a lot of sense to me. But what has made a lot of sense to you in New England this year? I think it's partially why, you know, Gerard Mayo's losing his job after one season is, you know, the inexperience really showed with him. The inexperience, and I forget who made this point, but, you know, he is so ingrained there. He hasn't heard a lot of voices over the course of his career as a player and as a coach. He hasn't really had an opportunity to develop other opinions, other thoughts, right? He's been a Belichick disciple since he entered the league 17 years ago. So it didn't go well for him. And, you know, I think for me, if I'm going to take one thing away from yesterday's game, it's that I'm concerned about the safeties. And I think there's a real conversation to be had about whether or not Cole Bishop finds himself in the lineup over a healthy DeMar Hamlin.
Interesting. Okay, so Chargers, Texans, Steelers, Ravens, Broncos, Bills. In these 3 matchups coming up this weekend, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Chargers are favored. Out of those 3, if there was a potential upset to be had, Nate, who do you have?
Well, I definitely don't. Wouldn't want to call whoever wins that Chargers-Texans game an upset. I think the Chargers should win. The Texans have not looked good in a month. Obviously, losing 2 of their 3 receivers doesn't help. But CJ Stroud hasn't looked right. So to me, that really wouldn't be much of an upset. I think it absolutely could get me to the Steelers beating the Ravens, especially no Zay Flowers. Say what you will. I know that they had a division to win. How they approached the Ravens, how they approached that game on Saturday. If it was Buffalo, this fan base, every radio station, every media member would have taken turns roasting Sean McDermott for leaving his starters out on the field until the very end of that game at 35-10, at 28-10, having Lamar Jackson taking shots in the pocket. You had Kyle Hamilton go down in the second quarter up 3 scores, comes back in the game. It didn't make any sense to me. And, you know, you kind of get karma, like they were out there. Let's just call it what it was. They were making sure that Lamar Jackson had enough stats to, you know, ensure his MVP candidacy, and it cost them their number 1 receiver for their first round playoff game. So that was such a, to me, boneheaded decision from John Harbaugh and the Ravens, having Derrick Henry running the football in the fourth quarter up 28-10 on the JV team, on a team in an organization that's given up. I just thought it was reckless. And, you know, they're paying the price, and they're going to be without their top weapon. And let's be honest with each other. Zay Flowers is a good player. Outside of that, Rashad Bateman, up until this year, hadn't really done much. And name their number 3 receiver. Is it Tylan Wallace? Is anybody concerned about Tylan Wallace? So, I think for me, that's the team that, 3 times these teams know each other very well. Historically, Lamar has struggled against Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I think if I'm going to look at one matchup, probably that one.
Yeah, watching that Steeler game, and my gosh, like you would think Russell Wilson would know how to manage the clock and making sure you get out of bounds or do whatever you need to do to preserve time. That didn't happen. But the issues, I think, in Pittsburgh's offense go deeper than that. Do they mix it up? Do they dare kind of sprinkle it? No, not at all. You don't consider that.
Listen, Tomlin's going to go to the grave with this one. So, listen, if you remember, after the move was made and then Russell Wilson in his first game throws for like 362 and like 2 touchdowns, right? And he was out there puffing his chest because, this was my decision, because he was, right, if you recall, it was his decision. He kind of went against, Ben Roethlisberger's got his podcast. It's still a very big part of that organization. And he's out there saying, no way you pull the plug on Justin Fields. And really went against all of the organization and made this move himself to move to Russell Wilson. And he's got to go down with the ship now. And I listen, that only that final drive to me is indicative of Russell Wilson, where he is in his career. At this point, you have to have a quarterback in there that knows running, getting 3 yards, and then also head coach not calling a timeout. That drive was so boneheaded that cost him that game. To me, it erased how terrible the third down play call was at the end of the first half, where they quarterback sneak and then are short. Then they call the timeout, and then they go out there and use their small running back instead of Najee Harris on 4th down and 1, and then they don't get it, and then they give up 3 points before the end of the half. It was some of the worst coaching and quarterbacking I've seen from a team that is in the playoffs in a very long time, guys. They're going to go down with that ship, and, it's part of why I don't really think they've got much of a chance against the Baltimore Ravens. But the Baltimore Ravens have not been good in the playoffs. And, listen, that's a close game in the third quarter, fourth quarter. It's the Steelers are up 3, or it's a tie game. The Ravens are going to have a lot. They're going to be playing tight. That's the only reason I think you could see a potential upset in that game. But no, Russell Wilson will be playing, and captain's going to go down with the ship.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to whether or not he can connect on some of those moon balls he likes to throw up there to Pickens, because when they do connect, they usually win. When they don't, they don't.
Pickens had 6 drops. Did I see that?
Just ridiculous. Almost as if he was just not engaged whatsoever. Nate Gary, the Buffalo Bills Radio Network, and our Odyssey Sports sister station, WGR in Buffalo, joining us in the Sports Bar. Nate, thanks for joining us on Black Monday. And it's a drumbeat that's only going to get louder here as the postseason continues and as teams get closer and closer to filling vacancies in their head coaching position. If I had to ask you, Joe Brady is coaching for the Bills or coaching for the field, which direction are you going next season?
I'm going Bills. I don't think there's not a job. Listen, I think Ben Johnson's probably going to leave. I think this is the season, and I think it's going to be New England. I think it's too good of a situation for him right now to turn away young quarterback, top 5 pick, and the most salary cap space in the league. That and a great owner. That's exactly the sort of situation he's been waiting for. A young quarterback with a rookie contract and all that cap room and a potential to get a really game-changing rookie. To me, that's where I think Ben Johnson ends up finally going is the New England Patriots. So for me, with New England off the board, what does that leave you? It leaves you the New Orleans Saints, which, Brady kind of got his NFL start there with Sean Payton, has the absolute worst cap situation in the league and no quarterback. He is not – when you're a head coach in the NFL, Ben Johnson's sort of writing the script for new young play callers. When you are knowing how in vogue and how important being an offensive mind, the young offensive mind is in the league right now, those coaches, the assistants that are the Ben Johnsons, the Joe Bradys of the world, have more power than they've had maybe ever in the NFL. So for me, Saints, absolutely not. Jets, absolutely not. Meddlesome owner, no quarterback established, and a roster that is going to need to be completely overhauled. The Chicago Bears, maybe, right? Like you've got a former number 1 pick, Caleb Williams. You've got Rome Odunze. You've got some pieces on the defensive side of the ball, but their ownership structure is also not good. It's a meddlesome ownership situation. So I don't think Chicago's a place that Joe Brady's going to, try to get his career started with. So, and Jacksonville, you're going to go work for Trent Baalke, who somehow is going to have a third head coach as the general manager and an owner that has not really been able to figure it out. So I think that when you have Josh Allen as your quarterback and you're the offensive coordinator, you're in such a unique situation where if you stay, you don't have to worry like you're Bobby Slowick, where he stayed, and I think that's going to end up costing Bobby Slowick because it's been a big, sort of backtrack from last season for C.J. Stroud. I don't think his name is going to be as hot in the circles this year. But then again, Rex Ryan, John Gruden, and Arthur Smith's name are being floated around for the New York Jets. Yeah. So there's a good chance one of us could catch an interview in New York. So, I think for me that Brady stays unless New England really kind of looks at him and says, we want you to be the guy. That could be a situation I absolutely could see Brady potentially leaving for. But again, I think that's earmarked for Johnson, and I think Brady sticks around.
Nate Geary, Buffalo Bills Radio Network. As Sunday, big day, Nate, 9 a.m. Looking forward to it. Thanks for your time today.
Big day, and I'm not. If we're going to get a Sunday game, I'm glad it's the 1:00 game. But I was kind of looking forward to having it on Saturday so that I could make some chili and sit on my couch and watch the game Sunday. But listen, it's a big football week for me, guys. Notre Dame plays Thursday night, Penn State.
Yeah.
It's a big football week for me.
Ooh, indulge me for 1 second.
Sure.
Can we have Marcus Freeman if you're a Chicago Bears fan?
No. No, he's too good for you. They just extended him. And he's probably got one of the best positions in college sports right now because Notre Dame's NIL is about to go up again. They've got tons of backing. They have the number 1 or the number 2 recruiting class next year. They've got 7 or 8 true freshmen that are unbelievable on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, he's going to be at that program for a long time, and all I have to do and all I would like to do before hanging up with you guys is thank the heavens that Brian Kelly thought he was too good for us. Oh. So he just gifted us our guy Marcus Freeman. So
yeah, Brian Kelly just sitting at home watching the game. Good luck to your Irish Thursday night, Nate, and we'll be listening Sunday. Always appreciate your time, bud.
Sounds good, fellas. Enjoy the rest of your week.
You got it. There's Nate Geary. You can hear him on the Buffalo Bills Radio Network. Our pregame coverage, 9 a.m. That's coming up Sunday morning with kickoff just after 1 o'clock.
It reminds me of what a week we have here. The fact that you put Notre Dame, Penn State on Thursday night, then you get Ohio State, Texas on Friday.
Right.
And then the NFL postseason begins.
Right. We are still very much in the throes of football nirvana. I mean, let the couch meld happen. It'll happen. I'm saying full meld by Bills kickoff.
And you got tonight, too. Sabres hockey on the plan tonight. 7 o'clock.
Right. Forgot about that one. Okay.
Well, you walk right into that one.
Yeah, really, you hit me with a 2x4.
Like, what's tonight?
I'm like, we saw the Mayo Bowl, and there was JR swimming in a pool of Cheez-Its. What other bowls are out there that no, we're talking about the S word. Happy hour is next. Lots to unpack from our conversation there with Nate. Lots to unpack from our conversation in the 3 o'clock hour with Greg Thompson. The Bills are in. We know the opponent. We know the time. We know that there's a handful of head coaching vacancies in the NFL. We'll discuss all of that, and we'll take your calls when you join us on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line at 866-4FAN. That's 866-4326.
To 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester weekday mornings. Because who needs more sleep when you can have sports excitement? WROC AM, WBEE HD2, and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester. Sports Update.
Bills are 8.5-point favorites against Denver. 1 o'clock to kick off on Sunday. Steve Tasker today on One Bills Live saying this is going to be a tough opponent.
The Broncos are a really good football team. Great defense, young, talented quarterback in Bo Nix. And if you saw that yesterday, he had a chance to show it all yesterday. Yep. And he did. He showed out. That dude can run. He's like Josh Allen for the Broncos. He can do it all. Yeah, this is a tough game. The Broncos are for real.
Coverage Sunday begins at 9 a.m. here on The Fan. Both the Jets and Saints have put in requests to talk to Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Both the Jets and Saints looking to hire a head coach. The Jaguars firing head coach Doug Peterson today. The Giants retaining head coach Brian Daboll and GM Joe Shane. Sabres hockey tonight, Buffalo hosting Washington. Our coverage will begin at 7. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Wild Card Weekend, Sunday, Broncos, Bills.
This is a 1 o'clock game.
Touchdown, Denver, 93 yards. Bo Nix.
Oh, Bo Nix are good for him.
Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Yeah!
Go Bills! Super Wild Card Weekend.
Bo Nix, rookie quarterback, first playoff game on the road in Buffalo. Sean McDermott's been hell on rookie quarterbacks.
Denver are 9-point dogs at Buffalo.
9 times.
9.
Mike Danger.
Denver's defense pretty good on paper, talent-wise. Bills are a superior team, and they should beat Denver.
Gene Battaglia.
What if this is the magical season? Is this the year? Is this finally it? Finally, the elements are there.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
It is happy hour as we look ahead to the postseason for the Buffalo Bills. The regular season is now in the rear view, and it's a matchup with the Denver Broncos, the 7 seed, coming into Orchard Park Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. Kind of nice that we found out the playoff matchups early in the game.
Yes.
They didn't keep us up too late. For East Coast dads like you and I, Gino. Got to, try and get as much shut-eye as we can get for this week.
I was pleasantly surprised because you tune in. We were tuning in anyways, but that's another carrot there they could dangle. Like, hey, coming up in the second half, we'll tell you where your favorite team will be playing on. I'm totally fine. Totally fine. I'm not upset that the Bills aren't in prime time. I think a lot of people, this has come full circle. I remember the days where, the Bills can't be in prime time. They never get in prime time. Now people want the 1 o'clock Sunday.
Yeah.
And I think the elements are there. It's a little bit of a shorter week for Denver. Certainly they've got to go. It's not West Coast, but they're coming in an opposite time zone here. And I just believe that with the Bills kind of taking their foot off the pedal yesterday, funny how it's not a victory Monday, but it just feels sort of that way. Just like whatever. Like
the victory is we made it through the regular season, and you're the 2 seed going into the postseason, relatively healthy compared to where you were last year at this time, where you were like, oh my God, really? Who's playing linebacker? What's going on? There was, I think, a lot less questions about this year's Bills team going into the postseason than you had last year.
There is a question that if Nate Geary brought this up, I'm like, the idea that Cole Bishop could go in and take snaps away from Damar Hamlin this week. Now, Sean McDermott was asked about this last hour because Damar Hamlin, it's a health issue, and that's why you saw him out there. And he said, Hamlin's still the guy, but could you see Bishop? I haven't seen anything that would make me say, yeah, let's make that move here in the postseason. But certainly seeing Taylor Rapp, I don't know, 10 yards out of place yesterday, that was a little alarming.
This is Sean McDermott on the health of his team.
Yeah, I'll knock on wood because sometimes things show up the next day. I feel like it. Let me just knock on wood again just to make sure. So I'll know a little bit more tomorrow and when I get back in the locker room.
That being the case, this appears to be the healthiest you've been going into the playoffs for, it seems like, several years. How rewarding is that to get to that point with your full team?
Yeah, it's good. You want to be as healthy as you can be going into the playoffs and as strong as you can be.
Sean McDermott yesterday after the game.
Okay, so there are a couple issues that coming out of the one being health. Brandon Codrington, the punt returner, has a hamstring issue. Not going to disclose, but it's something certainly we'll learn about more as the week kind of goes along here. And Amari Cooper was excused yesterday for a family matter, and when asked about that, Cooper was not back in the building yet.
Okay.
So hopefully that's going to be okay. Kind of comical because that wasn't the plan yesterday. If you're wondering, why do they have Samuel out there? Well, they didn't have a lot at wide receiver to the point yesterday, Danger, where Mike White took 3 reps at wide receiver yesterday. Talk about kind of, all right, let's just make sure we're getting through this and making sure all our key guys are set. Key guys being, the starting offensive line and your 2 defensive tackles and Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. And let's make sure that Josh Allen doesn't hurt himself after taking that 1 snap out in the field yesterday.
Yeah. The safety's a concern, whether it was Rapp, whether it was Hamlin, Cole Bishop. They all played significant time against the Patriots, and you saw blown assignments. You saw missed tackles and missed coverages, so something to monitor and something you'd want to clean up, obviously, going into Sunday's matchup against the Broncos.
Now, Benford wasn't out there. I think, though, the thing where I'm going to talk Bills fans down from this is, I'm going to say this, why do you fear Baltimore? You fear Baltimore because they can run the ball, okay? Because you saw what happened back in Baltimore earlier in the season. What was that, week 4 or 5? Denver's not that sort of team, Danger. They're not going to be pitching it to McLaughlin or Estime or whoever else they trot out there. It's the arm of Bo Nix, and I feel fairly confident that Sean McDermott's going to – I say Sean McDermott. It's Bobby Babbitt's defense. But to me, that is where I'm thinking that the Bills – and we're going to discuss this all week here. It is the best wild card opponent the Bills have faced, though, in the McDermott era.
I like the comparison to the Phillip Rivers Colts playoff matchup. It feels very similar to that, where there's definitely some threats. It's not going to be – it's not as easy as what it would appear with the Steelers or the Patriots that we've had here in years past. I think it could be a little bit tight with the Broncos coming in and with a head coach in Sean Payton who's very familiar with McDermott and vice versa. So that's the game in the early window Sunday, the 1 o'clock game, as the Broncos will come to Highmark and take on the Bills. We also learned it's a tale as old as time. The Texans will get the wild card weekend underway in their usual Saturday 4:30 slot. Those Houston Texans are always in that early Saturday window. This season is no different.
They should just put all Texan games, right? All home games on Saturday at 4:30.
And you know what else I'm noticing? Just kind of like taking the temperature of everybody out, who talks about football, who consumes football. Less chatter this year, or less pushback this year about one of the games being exclusively on a streamer.
I don't think people have caught on to that yet, perhaps. Or they dealt with it last year and they didn't realize, it's not the end of the world. Yes, that's the Saturday night game.
Correct.
Sorry, it's on Amazon. Just like last year's Chiefs-Dolphins playoff game was on Amazon.
Was it on Peacock?
It was on Peacock.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Yep. Prime got the Saturday night game between the Steelers and the Ravens. The CBS coverage will be for the Bills and the Broncos on Sunday. You've got Packers and Eagles in the afternoon window, late afternoon window on Sunday. That'll be on Fox. The Commanders travel to Tampa to take on the Bucs in primetime on NBC on Sunday night. And then you save the Monday night game on ESPN and ABC. The Vikings traveling to the Rams. That's an 8 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And we are going to talk a lot of Bills, talk a lot of NFL this coming week. Conversation earlier today with Greg Thompson from Cover One here. And thinking back to that conversation, Danger, just the idea that the Bills, and you brought this up too, what the funner storyline yesterday is, let's make sure our guys get their money. look, it's the cost of doing business. If you're wondering, oh my gosh, it's going to cost the Bills against the cap next year. Sure. Yeah, it'll cost a little bit, $1.5 million for Von Miller. That's going to count against the 2025 cap. But kind of looking at it this year coming up, it's not as bleak as it looked this time last year as far as the prospects for the upcoming cap.
No, and I love that, by the way. Like, Week 18 largely is meaningless for a lot of teams, but it's not meaningless for a lot of players. And when you see Von Miller get his sack, when you see Mike Evans achieve his goal.
Well, time out on that. That's weird to me. And here's why. Can we just, if you watch that, the celebration is you're the division champs. You won the game. Take a knee and call it out. I don't care if there was a 0.001% chance that ball, somebody jumps a route and returns it to the house, and you get the 2-point conversion, then you go to overtime, and then, oops, you're out of the postseason. As it turned out, Atlanta laid down too, and they lost.
Yeah.
So my point is that, but the celebration, and again, I wasn't there. It's whatever the television was presenting to me. But what they were presenting to me was the celebration for Mike Evans getting another 1,000-yard season was greater than going to the postseason.
Vibes are immaculate. The vibes are great, and part of that is because everybody understood how much it meant to him, and I think including the coaches, right? Like, ultimately, it's the coaches who are going to make those calls, and or the owners, as we talked about earlier with the Cowboys, to see them make that effort to get him that and how important it was. This is no different than Josh Allen going out and taking one snap. It's important to the player, so we're going to do it. It's not the same environment. I mean, Josh Allen taking one snap isn't going to cost you the game. If you throw a pick six in that situation, if you're the Bucs, it could cost you the game. I just loved it. I loved seeing that. I loved seeing Von Miller get his incentive. I loved every incentive that or every milestone that players were allowed to achieve. Barkley didn't get that chance in Philadelphia, right? And I know a lot of people are upset about that. Like, he should be out there. He should have an opportunity to do that. In Philadelphia, again, I don't think any of these situations are apples to apples. I think they're all different situations. Philadelphia knew they were the 2 seed. We don't have any reason to go out. Rest him. It's the right move. That's the right move. But when you're in a game against a division opponent and you're fighting for your life and you're hoping to make the postseason and you've got a lead and you can do that for Mike Evans, and to see the team react the way they did, you got to feel good about Tampa. They got to feel good about themselves going into the postseason.
Yeah, sidebar on that too, because some things bring clarity. Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol. He has not cleared. So they're not kind of giving you any timeline, nor sure that it's a yes or no question. When is he going to clear? If he's going to clear, can you imagine if he doesn't clear? Well, then you're going to lean on Barkley heavily, for that game, which I expect them to win against Green Bay.
I expect them to win as well, but I think both Hurts and Goff are cursed. I need a name for the curse of the 4 falls of Buffalo, the curse, the Kelly curse, the Jim Kelly curse, because it hasn't happened since Jim Kelly went to 4 straight Super Bowls.
It is the weirdest stat, and when you told me this, I didn't believe it, and I looked it back up and read. It's absolutely true that when a quarterback goes to the Super Bowl for a first time
and loses,
they
don't make it back. They haven't made it back.
And the last guy to do that,
Jim Kelly.
Right. Well, you could say it depends on how you're kind of laying this out, because Elway
went back, yes,
and then he eventually.
That's why we preface it by saying since the 4 falls of Buffalo, it hasn't happened. Elway went back for the first time since the 4 falls of Buffalo and won.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't go back. He didn't go
But as far as quarterbacks making their debut, so
yeah.
You could say the 4 falls of Buffalo or since Elway, I guess. But.
Yeah. It's an eerie stat, and when you see some of the quarterbacks that have made it but lost and not returned, they wash out kind of fast. It's weird. It's bizarre. It doesn't mean that they can't have long careers or successful careers. It just hasn't been where they've gotten back to the Super Bowl. So both Goff and Hurts qualify for that in the NFC. And I kind of dig the stats so much that I'd pick against them. I would pick against them. If the Rams face the Lions in the divisional round, is that how that would seed out? It would, right?
Only if the seeds hold.
If the seeds hold.
If the seeds hold.
then I would go with the Rams. I would take the Rams over Goff.
Which to me, I thought that was very unusual. Like when you want the 3 seed and avoid Detroit and certainly avoid Minnesota, you didn't know it was going to be Detroit and Minnesota. Why would you do that? Sean McVay, I'm sure, is looking at this like our team is built indoors. I don't want to go to Philadelphia if the seeds hold. I would rather have Sam Darnold, and I'm not scared of Jared Goff. I love that attitude.
Yeah. The Black Monday, not as black as I think we thought it was going to be.
Can I put this out here to a sports bar audience?
Oh, sure.
If anybody wants to take a crack at a new theme song, because ours now has a line in it that's completely...
Well, it's not completely irrelevant. It's part of our lore. It's part of our history. But he's not as relevant as he's not going to be as relevant moving forward as he has been for the last 12 months. Thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo.
Thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. You're done. I'm not surprised that Gerard, after all these years, I don't have to worry about how you say his name, Gerard Mayo was let go. I was shocked at the timing of it. He did it within an hour following the game. Like, how did it work? Like, hey, guys, here's some game balls. Good season. Let's meet tomorrow. Oh, no. Well, Mr. Kraft wants to talk to me here. Like, what was it, Danger?
It had to, if it wasn't something like, I don't know, losing the number 1 overall pick yesterday, something through the course of the season had to rub Kraft in such a negative way that he just knew as soon as it's over, we're moving on from this guy.
Well, as they should, because the idea that you want to talk to Ben Johnson or you go back to the Tom Brady number retirement ceremony. Remember how that was a big party in Foxborough in the summer? And Robert Kraft is sitting right next to Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
Mike Vrabel was the last head coach to beat Tom Brady. Mike Vrabel has some success in this league, and you couldn't talk to him. Like you made your head coach in waiting, Gerard Mayo, for whatever reason. So sometimes people make mistakes and they double down on them. See Buffalo Sabres. Sometimes they move off of them. I will give Robert Kraft credit because I think whoever comes in next is not going to do as bad a job as Gerard Mayo did.
I agree. And Vrabel makes a lot of sense for the obvious, connection to the team and history with the team. The culture builder. He could probably change things there pretty quickly. And he's got that history. It feels too easy, but it feels like that's definitely the direction to go. Meanwhile, if you stay in the AFC East, we know that both Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel are going to be back in Miami. They're confirmed. But I don't know if you, Gene, or if anybody listening has gotten the call yet from the Jets, but everybody is welcome to apply. They're requesting interviews with the list is a lengthy one.
Oh, and we're at peak Rex Ryan season 2, where his interview isn't until tomorrow, but he's already giving quotes and going on radio shows and telling Aaron Rodgers that's not how the way would be if I was a head coach. No more country club. If Rex got Woody in a room, is it like the ex-girlfriend? Like we had some really good times and Rex bats his eyes there and that's the end of it? I mean, that from where we sit here, we want chaos, right? Mm-hmm. We know that wouldn't work in the end. But Woody Johnson, I don't think thinks clearly about these sort of things.
Well, what the Jets are doing isn't too dissimilar to what the Bears are doing. It's just they're just opening it up. I don't know that there's anything wrong with talking to a ton of candidates and learning as much as you can about each of them and how they view your organization, your team, and what their plan could be, and eventually go with the guy who you believe has the best plan forward for your team's success. The list for the Jets right now, you mentioned Rex. I mean, we knew that Vrabel also interviewed. Josh McCown is going to interview. Matt Nagy has been requested. Joe Brady has been requested. Vance Joseph from the Broncos has been requested.
Okay, I draw the line in Arthur Smith. That's another one. Like
Smith.
You go ahead, have him. I'm sure Steeler fans are like, "Yep, go ahead."
Aaron Glenn in Detroit, Bobby Slowick in Houston, Brian Griese has been requested interviews. The Niners quarterback coach now. I mean, like, it's a long, long list, And out of all of them, is there anybody there that if you're the Jets, you're like, yes, that's the one? I don't know that anybody's excited about any of those names. You're really kind of like taking a leap of faith and hoping that they hit on somebody who has some kind of a vision for what the future could look like.
Okay, so let's start with Ben Johnson, because to me, he still is the look, as Joe Brady, I will say Joe Brady is going to get a job, but maybe he follows. There was a good point that Nate Geary brought up, like how Ben Johnson has been picky. What do you mean you don't want the job in Washington? Now, would he do that over again if he saw Jaden Daniels and see, okay, maybe this ownership isn't as bad as what was there before, but they maybe didn't have their act together. They maybe didn't pay him enough money. Whatever it was, he turned that job down. Are there jobs that Ben Johnson would be interested in? And for that matter, I would cross off the Jets. I would cross off the Jaguars. And, the Bears.
Yeah, the Bears. The Bears, why I would cross him off of the Bears is that, one, I think the Bears are too cheap, and two, he's already made it clear, like he wants an organization where there's alignment, and you ain't getting that with Chicago.
Well, sometimes, though, you've got to work toward that. Follow me on this. Like, Sean McDermott didn't have alignment here. He had the opposite. He had to work with Doug Whaley. And he didn't know that it was going to be able to get Brandon Beane and land him at that point. So sometimes you got to take that leap of faith.
If it plays out in Chicago the way it played out in Buffalo, where you hire the head coach and Ryan Poles is dead man walking, I would welcome that, but I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if they went that route.
Here's what I'm saying, okay? You can't be too picky. You know that division. There isn't a better young quarterback that has not reached his potential than Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams did some nice things this year. It's not his fault he didn't have a line and not much else there. Like, what other position would offer you that young quarterback? Okay, New England and Drake May, I suppose, but if Johnson gets offered by New England, I could see him taking that job. New England, Chicago.
More talent in Chicago for sure. Higher profile right now with Caleb Williams. It'll be interesting. I inevitably think his price tag is going to be too high, and the Bears are going to balk at it. They're going to go, okay, whatever. Mike McCarthy is making the rounds as well. Again, I don't know if there's any harm in picking the minds of as many people as you can. But when you hear the list of names, I don't know, none of them really jump off the page like, ooh, that's going to be the one. That's the guy. Except for maybe Ben Johnson at this point. Jags firing Doug Peterson. That's not a surprise. However, Trent Baalke gets to hire his third head coach as GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's rarefied air. What does he have? Does he know where all the bodies in Jacksonville are buried? My goodness.
Did you say air and Baalke in the same sentence?
Rarefied air. Not the air that you're breathing in during a Baalke press conference.
We're not there yet. We still got a couple of days going through. Coach and I haven't sat down and gone through the final board yet. We'll do that on Monday.
When you listen to that, he pauses to fart.
Yeah. It's a cheek lifter. I think he did a little cheek lift and then just kept going on. Kai is a machine. I am jealous. That is a well-trained sphincter. That guy is, that's why he still has the job. How do you move on from that guy? Are you kidding me?
His arrogance.
What
confidence.
What focus and confidence? Excuse me. And he keeps going. Doesn't even stop. We might have to revisit Take of the Year. That might have longer legs than we're sending the Pelicans to Galveston from Charles Barkley. That was amazing. Christian Watson, torn ACL. Packers going to be without one of their stud receivers against the Eagles this weekend. Lou Anarumo out as the Bengals defensive coordinator.
He won't have any trouble finding a job.
Well, the only knock I would say on a guy like Anarumo would be the same knock I'd have for a guy like Mike Zimmer in Dallas. Has the game passed you by as far as your ability to communicate with a younger player? Is your method outdated? Mike Zimmer felt that way in Dallas this year, right? Like, yeah, you know defense, and you've had a lot of successful defenses, but it's clear that the players aren't buying into what you're selling. And you know that because they tell you, well, we're not really.
Mike Zimmer never got – like, Lou Anarumo did a number on Patrick Mahomes. Like, reasons why the Bengals won the AFC Championship game, Lou Anarumo with that defense, number one. He's going to be back in this game. I'm not going to bet you a box wine.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
Let's get to a round of shots, speaking of box wine.
Funny. Did you look ahead? Because actually Mike Zimmer's coming up in shots.
Oh, I didn't look ahead. No.
All right, so we'll get to that.
I have Dallas on the brain because Jerry Jones is the devil in the flesh.
We've got some hockey. We'll talk about the good stuff. Your red hot Rochester Americans.
Thank you.
Yes, they are doing some really nice stuff here. And Skip Bayless in a little bit of trouble. We'll let you determine whether this lawsuit is frivolous or not.
Okay. We'll get to that with a round of shots. Don't forget about last call. You can pull up a stool and have the final say in the sports bar. 585-866-4FAN. 866-4326.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick.
Is that a corn?
That ain't no corn.
What?
That's a super corn!
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
update.
Bills open as an 8.5-point favorite against the Denver Broncos in the wild card. 1 o'clock the kickoff on Sunday. Steve Tasker says this Bronco defense is tough.
This is a tough matchup, I think, for Buffalo because it is strength on strength. The Broncos defense is real. It's no joke at all. They are really, really good. They got a gazillion sacks this year. They've got a ton of guys who can really get after the quarterback, and they got some corners that are no joke at all. They are really good.
Coverage Sunday begins at 9 a.m. Both the Jets and the Saints have put in requests to talk to Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Both the Jets and Saints looking to hire a head coach. Jaguars today fire head coach Doug Peterson. The Giants will retain head coach Brian Daboll and GM Joe Shane. Sabres hockey tonight. They host Washington. Our coverage will begin at 7. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey is your home for all the audio that matters to you. Download the Odyssey app today to listen to the sports leader, The Fan, Rochester.
Hey, we've got time for your calls before we close up shop at 6 o'clock. If you want to get in for last call, join us at 866-4326, 866-4FAN. First, a round of shots.
Alex Ovechkin now 23 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. Not that he's going to get 23 goals tonight, but trying to sell this game to you tonight. Here on The Fan.
I see. Okay.
Following loss Saturday at Vegas, Buffalo stuck at 33 points on the season. That is last in the Eastern Conference. Only San Jose and Chicago have fewer in the league. San Jose and Chicago, not exactly company you want to keep.
No, not when you consider what the Sabres have in terms of draft capital, what they've done with this team, where they've been. Like it's maddening. Yeah, I guess if you are going to watch tonight, watch because there's a future Hall of Famer on the ice for the opposing team, and every goal that he scores gets him closer to the great one. But, man, it is let's talk about something more uplifting. Can we talk about something more uplifting?
Yeah, the Amherst.
Thank you.
Yeah, how good is the AHL North? The Amherst have won 6 straight. They took 4 of 4 points this weekend, playing Springfield and Bridgeport, but they didn't widen the gap there. Cleveland is just a point back still. Laval just 3 points off the pace. Rochester has won 8 in a row on the road in this streak danger. They're outscoring opponents 38-16. The team back home Friday night against Utica. We'll talk to head coach Mike Leone, 425 tomorrow here in the Sports
Now, one of our regulars reached out on X at the Fan Rochester, if you're so inclined. I'm also at AKA Mike Danger. He's at Gene Battaglia. Frank, who sent us a question for Coach Leone back in late November, and he's like, hey, he sent me this over the weekend. Check the Amherst record since late November when we were questioning the toughness of the team, and we brought it up to Leone.
All right, Frank, we'll take credit for this.
Frank.
Yeah,
in fact, when Leone's here tomorrow, Gina, make sure you bring that up to him. Hey, Coach, you can thank us any way you want to, but, I mean, really, because we question your team's toughness, they've gone on a roll.
Yes, it's Mike Danger would say about me sometimes, Mike Danger is on assignment tomorrow, so it'll be terrible take Timmy returning to the sports bar.
Yeah, but, he's a hockey guy, so when you have Leone in here,
I'm just saying,
that's going to be great.
I'm just saying, though, do I pull up the audio last time he was in? Taron Johnson's average.
Terrible take Timmy tomorrow with Mike Leone in studio. Devin Levi, not living average, not living up to it in Rochester. Sorry.
It's easy to pile on the NBA product these days, right? Well, here's the latest example. Boston Celtics last night scored 24 points in the second half. That's gross. The loss to Oklahoma City, although OKC is white hot now. The Thunder have won 15 straight. Tonight, there are 9 games in the NBA. The Knicks hosting Orlando. Doubleheader on NBA TV as the Suns and Sixers, followed by Miami and Sacramento. So here you have Phoenix on the NBA TV, and they're benching stars. Miami, they're done. Yeah. As for Oklahoma City, they play at Cleveland Wednesday night, a matchup of the top 2 teams in the league.
Now, are you following the back and forth that's happening between J.J. Redick and the Inside the NBA guys?
No, I'm not following it.
So Redick, I guess, because the Inside the NBA guys, I think, are like saying what a lot of NBA fans are saying. Like, the product is not great right now. You just gave a great example of it in the game last night. And everybody's just chucking up threes, and the game just isn't as fun and entertaining to watch. And they're critical of it. Shaq, Chuck, they're critical of the game. And Redick took offense to their criticism. Like, why would you, if you're an advocate for this game, why would you be critical of it? No wonder fans aren't watching it. You guys have influence, and you're being overly critical of a game that we all love, right? And so Chuck, and somewhere the audio exists, I got to find it. Chuck basically was like, really? You're going to come at it? If you're going to come at us, you best not miss because your team is trash. And he basically just ripped apart the job that Redick has done with the Lakers since being there. And it also comes with the caveat that, like, Redick is self-aware enough to know, like, he might not make it as the Lakers head coach much longer. I mean, there's a long line of good coaches that haven't done well in terms of keeping a job with the Lakers. And Redick basically said, yeah, I kind of know what I'm already getting myself into. I'm a dead man. I already know I'm a dead man.
Well, you're kidding me. Like a 40-year-old star at the end who dictated that his son play on the team at the beginning of the season that didn't go so well?
Right.
Oh.
Right. Yeah, nobody could have predicted it.
No.
And he hires his buddy to be the head coach. And the head coach is being asked about his future. And he's like, I took this job knowing I'm a dead man. You can't threaten me or scare me. I'm already dead. Hi. Wow.
Okay.
All right, JJ.
Yeah. That winter storm moving across the Midwest caused issues in the NFL. First, it was the Chiefs having trouble getting out of KC, which, if you missed it, they were stuck there for a while. Like, well, why didn't they leave earlier? Apparently, their plane couldn't get in because of the storm. Then last night, the charter flight for the Jaguars trying to leave Indianapolis, waiting on the tarmac for 7 hours. Finally took off at 1 a.m. Skip Bayless being sued by a former Fox employee. Nushin Faraji was the hairstylist for the show Undisputed. Lawsuit alleges that Bayless made an unwanted advance toward her, allegedly saying that if she were to have sex with him, he would change her life, quote unquote. Oh, it gets worse. Bayless allegedly put a number to it. Oh, no. $1.5 million.
Oh, dude.
Both Bayless and Fox were named in the lawsuit. Fox is offering no comment.
I have so many thoughts here. Well, first of all, the idea, like, I could see Bayless being that confident. Like, you have sex with me, it's going to change your life.
Change your life.
And then just throw the money at her. $1.5 million for a piece of A? $1.5 million for a kill? Are you out of your mind if you're that desperate? Just Lyle Avenue, buddy. Come on. What? $1.5 million? What's so special about this woman, $1.5 million?
Danger, it's a lawsuit, and sometimes things just go into the lawsuit, and we'll let the law kind of
We will. I'm just wondering. I'm asking these questions aloud. I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong. I'm not convicting anybody. But the idea that Bayless said that sex with him would change her life. Yeah, it would change her life. It would probably – she'd probably flip teams afterwards. $1.5 million.
I don't know. If you put yourself into these situations.
Right.
You know, it's, right. Yeah. Finally, before there was Bill Belichick and his 24-year-old girlfriend, let's not forget the original old dog in the NFL, Mike Zimmer. You didn't know I was going to bring this up today. This weekend wasn't all bad for the Cowboy defensive coordinator. Maybe he goes to the ex-defensive coordinator. Who cares? Because he's loving life. Zimmer popped the question to his model girlfriend, Katarina Mikkonen. Zimmer lost his wife back in 2009 when she was 50. Well, today, Zimmer is now 68, and his new fiancée, Mikkonen, is 42. A 68-year-old marrying a 42-year-old, that's not outrageous here. What is outrageous is the pairing. Like, you see the photos, like, what is she doing with him?
I saw the photos, and I said that. I'm like, whoa. Zimmer, way to read the D, pal. But at the same time, we can be critical of him as a coach, but as a man, losing his wife when she was 50 back in 2009, I don't know. I mean, I can't judge because I don't know what I would do if I was in that situation. And I suppose if you were to end up with a 42-year-old supermodel, you probably wouldn't think twice about that.
No, Mike Danger. The correct response is, I know exactly what I would do every day. I would think about the good times, and then I would go home and read a book.
You would just pack up your manhood and say, well, it was fun. I'm gonna miss her.
That's the difference between your wife not listening to your show and the executive producer of the show.
I'm sorry. Was it what I said off color? Is that not the correct response?
You don't know what you would do. Yes, you do know what you would do.
Oh, yes, you're right. I would wear black every day, go into mourning, and I would cease to move forward with my life. This guy is a pig. How could he, at 68, hook up with a 42-year-old supermodel? I'm disgusted. I am just outraged. And Bill Belichick, for that matter, as well. What are you doing?
Belichick joined X today, as did Jordan Hudson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they weren't on X.
No. This is Belichick with all the North Carolina colors there talking. My first tweet on X is beat Duke, D-O-O-K.
There you go. Playing right into the hands of the peasantry there at UNC. All right, let's.
Come on, Coach. It's not too late. Come on back.
Let's get to last call at 866-4326. We'll let you know who's stopping by the sports bar tomorrow while I'm on assignment. Next on the Fan Rochester.
You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
All right, last call where you have the final say at 866-4326. Get the last word in here in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia at 866-4FAN. First check-in of 2025 from our buddy John in Rochester. How are you, you Spartan, you?
Hey, guys. Happy New Year to
Happy New Year.
to both of you.
Thank you.
And listen, I'll tell you, where the heck did Joe Milton come from? I know he played at Tennessee or something, but holy mackerel, what a game he had yesterday. But, I kind of was disappointed that they played Josh at all. To me, it was like a Michael Strahan, Brett Favre thing where, you get the inconsequential play. In Strahan's case, it was a sack to set the record. But anyway, I love Josh. If he wanted to do it, it's up to him. I'm happy that we're playing Denver. I'll tell you, I was afraid of Miami and, of course, Cincinnati. But the thing is, and you guys know more about this than I do, Tua wasn't that healthy. So if Miami came into Buffalo Sunday, Tua, would he have been available?
I'm guessing no, because they essentially had their playoff game. Not that it would have mattered for the Dolphins anyways, but he didn't play yesterday. So.
Right, and I think he said if it came down to it, if it was a playoff game, he would definitely play. But the doctors were telling him, no, you can't play. And what was essentially yesterday a playoff game. You needed to beat the Jets. You couldn't even beat the Jets. And now you have this fallout from losing to the Jets. And Tyreek Hill's comments and Josh McDaniel kind of scrambling they're going to have to figure out a lot of things in Miami here this offseason. It's almost like the Bills have completely, with their dominance, broken the rest of the AFC East. And I'm not angry about any of it.
No, it's like, John, thank you for the call.
Appreciate you, John.
Josh Allen going out there to extend his streak is not exactly like Michael Strahan.
No, I don't think it's apples to apples.
Who cares?
I don't have any problem with it at all. Like, it's one play. You're handing the ball off. It means something to him. He's the franchise. Let him do it. He could be a Brett Favre kind of like player, or a Ben Roethlisberger kind of player. Just a guy that just never misses time. He's just known for his toughness, and you see it. Yes,
yeah,
you see it around the NFL more and more, where guys just can't stay healthy because of the brand of football that they play. He plays a physical brand of football, and he withstands that punishment and continues to play. He's played through injuries. He's been injured. He had a broken left hand. He's been playing with it all season long. So I have no problem with him going out there and keeping that streak alive. No issue whatsoever. Now, tomorrow I'm not here. Gino and Terrible Take Timmy are here, and as is tradition, on Tuesday, chock full of guests.
Yeah, we will be talking to Matt Perino, our first conversation with the Bills Beat Report.
Can you ask him about his cold plunging? Because I wanted to ask him about it. He's taken on cold plunging.
Do I lead with that or finish with it?
I'm so curious about the life of a cold plunge. You just mentioned that Danger is curious about how the cold plunges are going.
No, I was just thinking I would call him weird and see where it goes from there.
Oh, good. You invite him in, our guest. Invite our guest into our show and insult him by calling him a weirdo for cold plunge.
If you're friends with somebody, they take it in stride.
Uh-huh.
Which we're friends with Matt Perino.
Yeah.
Lucky enough to have his friendship. We'll be talking to Amherst head coach Mike Leone. We'll also be talking to Michael F. Florio, as he is a Bills fan, NFL Network fantasy football, as we look ahead to 2025 as well.
Yeah, boy, and with the regular season over now, you kind of like look back at the season that was, take stock of the mistakes you may have made or the steals that you may have picked up. That's a fun conversation. That's all happening tomorrow afternoon here at the Sports Bar. Matt Perino, 325. Amherst head coach Mike Leone, 425. Michael F. Florio from NFL Network tomorrow afternoon at 4:45. If you missed Nate Geary from the Bills Radio Network or Greg Thompson from Cover One, find those conversations wherever you get your podcasts. Just search out the Sports Bar on your platform of choice, including the free-to-download Odyssey app. JR Sport Brief next on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester. The puck